Part 96. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 954. Hood is fond of black tea, and every afternoon tea is a must. Her favorite thing to do is to wait in the pavilion early at the right time. It's hard for Sheng Sheng to take care of her besides his busy work. If you really don't have time, you can use any one of Counterattack, Glory, Vanguard, etc. Yo, Thieving Cat. Sankai Mobile Phone. Ta. 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 Deutsche Seagate is number 1 in the world. After playing badminton and preparing to walk outside, Bismarck passed by the pavilion and turned around to see Hood holding the side of her face with one hand. She pursed her lips and said nothing. Prince Eugen stood up and sneered. Four-eyed girl, mosquito-repellent eyes, glasses girl, bad eyesight. The world's best ammunition management, instant explosion. Stuff the cat. Lucky E. The quarrel is not about who is more reasonable, but about whose voice is louder and whose psychological quality is better. Hood was undoubtedly not as capable as Prince Eugen, and did not have such a high psychological quality. She turned to Rodney to get help, then to the Lion, then to the Prince of Wales, and finally tugged at the hem of Reputation's skirt. However, no one responded to her, and everyone remained silent. Hood sighed. What kind of sisters are these, plastic flower sisters? They never know how to draw swords to help, they only know how to stab men, and they are the best at robbing admirals. With a snort, Hood decided to ignore the villain's mistakes and wait until he returned to the room before beating Bismarck, which was actually a large doll. First, he punched 100 times, hit him on the head, then hugged and threw him 50 times, and Eugen. Prince, you can't let this little girl go either. What are you looking at? With Bismarck gone, it was naturally impossible for Baizai to stay at the indoor badminton court. However, Bumblebee, the weakling, started playing badminton with great interest. When she passed the warehouse, she saw Xiaozai sitting under the eaves and reading comics on the bench guard rail. Xiaozai didn't say anything. She hated Baizai. Taking over Sister Miao and the Admiral didn't count. She was a dead, fat, lazy, and useless house, but she actually said that she wanted to become her when she grew up. The more Xiaozai ignored people, the more interested Baizai became. She leaned over to take a look at the comics and said, I've read this one, and it's pretty good. Do you like this one too? Is Baizai a good girl? It's really hard to say. At least this time she didn't give any spoilers, didn't say what the protagonist of the comic was like, who was the big boss behind the scenes, it was just a royal plot from beginning to end. When Baizai left, Xiaozai closed the comic and slapped it hard on the guardrail of the stool. She was unhappy, thinking that I don't want to read the comics you like to read. I don't like comics at all. I like sports. I am a cash-rich person. I don't want to be a nerd when I grow up. She hesitated again and felt that there was no need to be angry, at least. After finishing this book, I picked up the comic and read it with gusto. Leipzig was sorting things in the warehouse. She grinned when she saw Xiaozai. Xiaozai would become Baizai in the future. It was certain that the two of them were carved out of the same mold. Fireflies, fireflies, fireflies. Someone was chattering behind her. Firefly turned around and saw Admiral Hipper. She was too lazy to pay attention and turned around to continue talking. It's rude to ignore people, Hipper said, stretching out his hands under Firefly's armpits, picking up the little Lolita, and turning them around again, so that they were now facing each other. Ah, the Fireflies are so cute, I can't help but the ribbon tying the twin ponytails seems a bit dirty. I'll go to Chuangziu another day and buy a new one for her. Her goodwill will increase a lot. Hipper looked like a slut, but he was clearly a serious and dignified captain in the gendarmerie. In addition, The Lolicon admiral who was once arrested by her and sent to the gendarmerie would be shocked when he saw this look. He shouted that only the state officials were allowed to set fires and the people were not allowed to light lamps. By the way, I would like to express my feelings again. Before you meet the right one, you never know you are a Lolicon until you meet someone. Firefly looked at Hipper. She puffed up her cheeks and wanted to kick her, but she still held back. Just a moment later, her face was rubbed. She couldn't help it. She grabbed Hipper's face with both hands and gave her a slap on the forehead to taste the power of the rocket head butt. When Hipper squatted on the ground covering his forehead, Firefly took Trusty's hand and left, disappearing into the corridor of the dormitory building. In addition to these several couples, who are noisy every day, there are also Washington and South Dakota, a pair of good partners. The ring is worn on the ring finger of the left hand. South Dakota will never take it off. Since the bright diamond is quite conspicuous, he has been robbed outside before, so it is naturally impossible for any accident to happen. If the little thief dares to steal the ring, he will be angry and invincible. This is not a deserved reputation. But when she occasionally showed off in front of Washington, Washington became annoyed and was snatched away by her several times. It is said that every time you eat, you will gain wisdom, but it is not true that every time South Dakota passed by Washington, he would raise his left hand, reveal his ring, and dangle it in front of Washington. South Dakota is a country girl, and Washington is a handsome urban beauty with long white hair tied into a ponytail and black long trousers. She is sitting on a wicker chair with her arms folded across her chest and her legs crossed, teasing, "Little fat man, every day do you want to show off?" South Dakota said triumphantly, "I have it, but you don't. At least you have some self-knowledge." Washington lowered his head and rubbed his forehead. "Although you have a ring, it is not a wedding ship. CV-16 does not have a ring. You are the well-deserved MRS-16. You are just the opposite. You don't have a name with the ring." "No, I just lied to the little Lolita." Now even the little Lolita doesn't believe it anymore. South Dakota said, "Sour, so sour. Isn't it easy for me to want it?" Washington picked up the wine glass and took a sip. South Dakota boos. Not just South Dakota, but Nevada too booed. Washington looked over and saw that Nevada was almost scared for a second, but Colorado and Helena were a little bit difficult to deal with. When they were on the front line, they learned that Colorado had received the ring in just a few days. His performance seemed a bit fierce. They saw it in their eyes. Now it is difficult to explain. "I shouldn't regret it." No matter what, Washington acted as planned. She said calmly, "Anyway, little fat man, let me ask you, did the Admiral stay in your room overnight?" "I don't think so." "Why did he stay in everyone's room?" "Those real the wedding ship is missing you alone, doesn't that mean there's something wrong?" South Dakota bit her lip. "Nah, Washington seduced, little fat man, do you want me to teach you how to become a real wedding ship?" "Do you think I'm stupid?" South Dakota expressed doubts. Needless to say, she knew very well that Washington was definitely not well-intentioned. "You're not a fool, who is?" Washington said, "you just say it or don't you listen." "Listen, South Dakotans are talented people who understand current affairs. Anyway, it is up to them to decide whether to do something or not." Washington wanted to say something, put on his pajamas, called the Admiral to the room, locked the doors and windows, and pushed him in. But think about it, the Admiral was not good at refusing, and he might even be looking forward to this kind of thing happening. "If you succeed in getting to the top, it won't be pretty. I don't want to talk about it anymore." "You," South Dakota gritted his teeth. Washington hesitated for a moment, then an idea flashed in his mind. "Well, South Dakota, you know, admirals like powerful people. I think back when Ying blew up the 4 ships, they got the ring with their strong combat effectiveness. Ayanami's tragedy was because as a destroyer, if he is not strong enough, Bizai will get the ring as soon as he grows up. South Dakotan nodded, it seems to make sense. Washington said, so, when you become powerful, the Admiral will definitely like you. South Dakota shook his head, no, I'm too strong, my training level has reached the limit, there is no way to improve it, and the ship equipment parameters are fixed. Although there is no way to improve the level of training. Washington said, everyone has a unique skill. Colorado, Rodney, and Nelson are good at Tomahawk Madness and operate ship-mounted naval guns to attack two people at the same time. Maryland is aggressive. Mary, Lexington was a pioneer in aviation tactics again, and then you can be too. It's not that easy. South Dakota pouted. She was not a dead fish. In order to become stronger, she tried to learn the Battle Madness axe, but there was no way to learn it. She tried to shoot at 2 targets, and the final result was I couldn't hit any of them, I was 1,000 miles away. I'm not asking you to learn from others, just compare the two of us. I'm smart. I've acquired excellent radar since I grew up. Giving orders as the flagship can improve the combat effectiveness of the entire formation. You're stupid and your ship's equipment is terrible, so it definitely won't work. I mean, develop your own unique skills, Washington said, before South Dakota yelled. My trick, South Dakota muttered to himself, Iron Curtain defense? No carrier-based aircraft can break through my air defense. You're overthinking, it's not that. Washington waved his hand, I thought of one, you can try it? South Dakota asked, what? Washington whispered in South Dakota's ear. No, no, no. South Dakota shook his head repeatedly like a rattle. He actually wanted to be a human shield to protect others and protect others from outputting safely. The tailor makes a wedding dress to make others happy. I don't want it. While Washington exaggerated, you can still talk about South Dakota, that's not bad. South Dakota is proud that he reads every day, not sleeps every day. Washington smiled, a smile of victory. I understand. Your concerns make sense. But think about it, we are a team. Although you did not get the result, others got the result. It is fair and reasonable. Everyone can see it. The Admiral can see it. You really don't have any credit for their MVP. On your body. Our little fat South Dakota has given so much, like the sun shining every day, like cows eating milk from grass, insisting on giving silently, as long as there is a little conscience, who doesn't like and love you. Holding back does not mean retreating, just for better punches can sometimes gain favor in a different way. South Dakota hesitated. Washington opened his hands, sacrificing the small self to fulfill the greater self, what a noble spirit. South Dakota said, okay, I can give it a try. The Unyielding Windflower, what a nice name. South Dakota nodded, she liked windflowers. Try it, said Washington. Let's try it. Let's try it now. For the general garrison, there are only so many ship girls. Not everyone is free, and it is not agreed in advance. It is not a big problem to form a 6-person formation, but to form 2 formations, the difficulty immediately increases exponentially. Of course, there are also not all of them are capital ships. After all, any capital ship is not easy to obtain. But for the garrison, it was completely trivial to have 2 teams of main battleships. Washington found people easily, and many people were upset that they could not participate in the exercise. It would be a big loss not to participate in such a fun thing. Anyway, everyone happily ran to the exercise, and then the exercise ended not long after. South Dakota was beaten all the time, and returned to the dock in disgrace. Washington laughed, how about the Unyielding Windflower? South Dakota caught up with Washington and raised his hand to hit her. Sugu came over at this moment and said, you guys are so lively here. Washington pressed South Dakota down to prevent her from hitting him. "Little fat man, don't hit him. The Admiral is here. Do you want the Admiral to see you looking like a bitch and sloppy?" South Dakota stopped immediately. Yes, she couldn't let the Admiral see her like this. She ran quickly and hurried back to the room to change her clothes. Guam said, "The Admiral missed the show." Consultant Sue, "What's the show?" Guam smiled and explained, and Sugu said, "I tell you, don't bully South Dakota too much." "No bullying, just fun," Guam said. Washington said, "Don't tell me, Admiral, it seems to be really effective. South Dakota is responsible for protecting everyone and also taunting the enemy. The others can attack with peace of mind. At least the two of her and her left have effectively improved their combat effectiveness." Sugu said, "No way." "Yes, why not?" Washington nodded. "Yeah, then it's decided, South Dakota's unique skill, the unyielding windflower." "Let's talk about it," Sugu said. "This kind of trick, South Dakota feels so pitiful." "Amethyst hasn't spoken yet," Washington said. Sugu said, "Amethyst is seeking her own death." "She's about the same." Washington shrugged his shoulders. "Don't talk about this," Sugu said. "Washington, I have something to ask you. You and I will go to Sichuan show in a few days." Guam interrupted, "Admiral, are you inviting Washington on a date?" Facing South Dakota, Washington didn't fight back because he had just bullied her. Washington pushed Guam's head down. Guam bowed his waist. "Sister-in-law, I was wrong." Sugu said, "There is something serious." Sugu thought to herself that the Colossus came to guard the mansion and she brought a message. It was too specific. Colossus did not explain it clearly. He only said that the ship girl headquarters would go to the college to provide publicity and education to the new students, regarding the Admiral Code, laws and regulations, etc. By the way, all the admirals of the garrison in the nearby sea area, as long as they are not away on important matters. If not open, it must be in place. It's not an interesting thing, so there is no need for everyone to go. As the Admiral, it is natural that Washington will also be responsible for this in the garrison, and 2 people will be appointed for the time being. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 955. In the early morning, I drove the yacht to the college's pier, which was already full of various boats. The cable was fastened to the pile, and the anchor was thrown into the sea. A big splash of water appeared. When looking around, Sugu's eyes were attracted by something, and he was a little concerned. There is an Natasha, and of course there is an Ida ship. It is an Ida ship, and it is full of cartoon ship girls. In the tutelage, you can choose casual clothes and wear them however you want. Many people walk around in a vest and slippers. Of course, there are also many people who have ulterior motives and dress up beautifully or sexy all day long. Today, formal attire is required. Sugu is wearing a white admiral uniform and a large cap. Washington was wearing a neat black suit and skirt. She looked smart and capable. She also noticed the painful ship. She hesitated. The one at the front, is that Veneto? White hair, pretending to be mature, wearing a suit shirt, black silk suspenders, and a mesh top hat, no breasts, no butt, 1.3 meters tall, looking like a gangster lady. She must be Veneto. Sugu thought to himself. That cartoon picture, it was 70% or 80% similar to the standing paintings in the original game, that is, the sitting posture was different. Thinking of this, he suddenly turned around. No one suddenly appeared, and he said with a straight face, "I think I know whose ship that is." Washington asked, "Whose?" "What, you don't know? You haven't seen it?" Sugu said. "Would you like some rabbits today? Does the club know? There are many societies, and the most famous among them is definitely this one." Washington nodded and responded, "I remembered that a long time ago, After the written examination and interview had passed, I brought Xiaozai to the college to register for admission. When I encountered a missionary, I was so frightened that I quickly took Xiaozai's hand and ran away. Sugu said. Then, that person was the president of this club, married Veneto, and the little Lolita also took action. She is really perverted, an out-and-out perverted Lolita control. Veneto is fine, she's a legal Lolita, and Washington rubbed his forehead. Anyone can say this, except you, the Admiral. Are you really embarrassed to say that to me? Who the hell has been saying this all day? What do you keep saying? 3 years of blood earned by the death penalty is not a loss. Sugu smiled. Washington suddenly hesitated, and then she spoke. People who know you know it's a joke, and outsiders may misunderstand it. In addition, for girls, is it also disrespectful and insulting? It's just a joke, just saying it casually. I don't really have any thoughts about attacking the little Lolita. There's no need to go online like that, just say it in front of a few people. Sugu paused again, thinking to himself, he likes to joke, but others may not like it. Well, okay, I will pay attention to it. Sugu recalled, where did this joke come from? If the perpetrator has a relationship with a girl under the age of 14, and the circumstances of the crime are ordinary, he shall be severely punished with a fixed term imprisonment of not less than 3 years but not more than 10 years. If the crime is serious and abominable, the person shall be sentenced to fixed term imprisonment of more than 10 years, life imprisonment, or death. In fact, initially everyone said that it would start in 3 years, with the maximum penalty being the death penalty. Later, I don't know when it became popular, and it became 3 years of blood profit, and the death penalty would not be a loss. Although the main meaning of both is to praise a person's cuteness, the meanings are completely different. While chatting, they walked towards the auditorium located in the center of the college. Passing by the aircraft carrier academy, I saw the instructor of the aircraft carrier, the Formidable, wearing a white coat, sitting on a bench under the lush banyan tree on the roadside. Akagi occasionally came to the academy to teach, and Sugu had accompanied her a few times, and they were still acquainted. It was said that he is really a yandere, and he also likes to concoct all kinds of strange potions, calling himself an alchemist. In addition to Nelson, the battleship instructor Tennessee was running along the lake. Her training level was definitely not as good as everyone else. She had been to the garrison several times before to ask some questions. Now she was considered acquaintance. When she saw this, she waved. Sugu waved his hand. Due to the relationship between Zeppelin, Akagi, Colossus, etc., the garrison is near the college, and he is still a student here. The faculty and staff of the college basically know each other. They walked by and greeted them all the way. Not long after, in front of the auditorium, Sugu meets a perverted lolicon again. Someone Sugu. Eugene was standing on the steps leading to the auditorium, leaning on the railing, holding a little loli in his arms. Sugu recognized it. Every time he saw her, he would hear her show off that she's super cute and was especially good at singing. The super nice sounding destroyer USS Hillman. Morning, Sugu said, so early. Eugene said, you are so close and it is still so late. Anyway, it's time to get started. Don't arrive early or be late. Sugu looked around. He didn't see the other party's secretary Shipmutsu. He didn't know where it was and couldn't tease him. He knew very well that even though Shirayuki was a young wife, Mutsu was still by her side every time she went out. This is Sugu, Admiral Sugu, do you recognize him? Eugene is not alone. There are several admirals beside her. Sugu has met her a few times, but she doesn't know her. He is not her classmate, and everyone's garrison is far away from her. Some people said, we recognize him, but he doesn't recognize us. If the admiral of the garrison who had defeated the deep-sea flagship attack several times was in a certain place and could still say that he did not know him, but he was hanging out in the East and still said that he did not know him, that would be too unconcerned about the outside world or too pretentious. Sugu smiled happily. Senior, I'm really honored to say that. Introduce each other. As a super powerful battleship, Washington has aroused some envy. Sugu thought to himself, if it weren't for today's special circumstances, he could only choose Washington. If the lion appeared, it would definitely blind everyone's eyes. This is not to belittle Washington. It is true that the lion has a gorgeousness that surpasses everyone, whether it is height or figure. An existence that simply oppresses all sentient beings. Sugu said, the giant statue called me over, but he didn't explain it clearly. Do you know what the specific matter is? Eugene shook his head, I don't know. Others also expressed their ignorance and helplessness. Young Master Mu Sugu saw Mu Cheng again. He was with Lu Jianchu, so he said goodbye to this side. How was it, Consultant Su, did you gain anything? Sighing, Sugu learned that Mu Cheng had built 2 more destroyers, now totaling 6 destroyers. Capital ships are really rare, but there are not even a single light cruiser, which is pretty cool. Really not knowing how to comfort him, he glanced at Tianhao who was passing by and wanted to say something, but he also had Kaosheng, an out-and-out black-haired beauty. Although there is no powerful ship girl, but Mu Cheng suddenly broke the news that his wife Li Yu was pregnant. Sugu and Lu Jianchu congratulated each other. I want a daughter. Mu Cheng suddenly became worried. If it's a son, I'm a little worried when I think about whether he will harm Anthony and the others. Even if it is a son or daughter, there is no inheritance or transfer for a ship girl. A ship girl can only recognize one admiral. If you want a ship girl, work hard to build it, or go salvage it, so you can gain their approval. Lu Jianchu said, if you think too much, don't scare yourself. Sugu said, another little admiral. It won't work. Mu Cheng waved his hand, I definitely can't help it. Dad is counting on his grandson to inherit the family business. Sugu said, I just remembered that your company is so big. Beast. After a while, Sugu gave it up and got used to it. When he learned that Lu Jianchu had built a battleship, Mu Cheng's eyes twitched. Lu Jianchu said, I still want a Sheik Hung. Sugu knew that the other party liked the Akagi, which he used to be an instructor in the academy, and was also his wedding ship. It is said that many people in the academy liked Akagi at the beginning, but there was no way she could have a goddess side without losing her cute side. For example, when she cheated on food in the academy, there were no bad foodies, so it was natural. Mu Cheng said, aren't you afraid that your Borg will be jealous? Lu Jianchu looked to the side where Berg and Washington were talking, and he said, she knows. Sugu said, what a good girl. Someone has 15 wedding ships. Lu Jianchu turned to Sugu, they didn't tear you into pieces. That's a good girl. Sugu said, now I am MRS Shiki. Mu Cheng gave a thumbs up, you are awesome. It hasn't started yet. Several people are looking at the new students at the door of the auditorium, pointing and saying that a newcomer this year is very powerful and has a super powerful battleship. Which one was originally built in women's clothing? It is really powerful. It seems that it is actually built. A good ship girl. Wow, you are Admiral Su. Sugu didn't expect that he would meet such an admirer. She was a cute girl who seemed to be a new student. Can you teach me, the girl asked, how to build a powerful ship girl? Sugu said, there is nothing that can be taught. It all depends on luck. Don't be like this, please, the girl said, I can call you Brother Su. Sugu thought to himself, he was probably another girl with a devilish personality. She looked innocent, but was actually the most difficult to deal with. The girl saw Washington walking back again, and she said, is my sister the wife of Brother Su? She is so beautiful even with a straight face. Washington is not that easy to deal with and is non-committal. The girl continued, What kind of ship girl is my sister? Washington replied, Battleship Washington. The girl held her hands in vain and waved in the air, Washington who cut down the cherry tree. Will my sister suddenly hit me with an axe? The girl said. If it's my sister, I'm willing to be chopped down. Really, Washington took out a big axe at that time. The girl waved her hands repeatedly, Sister, you can't be serious. The girl smiled playfully, looked serious, and stretched out her hand towards Sugu. I haven't introduced myself yet, Xin, nice to meet you, Admiral Sug, Brother Sug. He was also considered a very powerful admiral. It was not like Sugu had never encountered an admiral who took the initiative to say hello. He had a feeling that the girl in front of him would have an unlimited future and would surely harm many ship girls. The premise was that he was lucky enough to meet a wandering ship. Mom, there are a lot of stray ship girls in every ship girl branch, and those ones are not easy to deal with. Finally ready to start, everyone sat down in the auditorium. Not the captain of the gendarmerie, but the largest gendarmerie in the nearby sea appeared. I ate a little at noon, took a rest, and then started again until the end of the afternoon. After walking out of the auditorium, Sugu finally knew what was going on. Why did he suddenly summon all the admirals to their positions? People's hearts are fickle, and at first you want to be a hero, but soon you become the most annoying person you've ever known. Some admirals have done rather, extremely bad things. For money, they deliberately delayed support in an attempt to blackmail the local government, and also colluded with corrupt officials. Deep-sea ship girl has no way to control it, but she can collude with pirates, and the impact is particularly bad. The gendarmerie couldn't believe it when they first received the report. It had to be said that someone who could become an admiral was basically a smart person, quite cunning, and had very clean hands and feet. However, it was confirmed after several months of visits and investigations. Instead of calling the admirals to the gendarmerie as usual, please don't be so Lolita-minded, you admirals. This is a trivial matter, just educate them. The treatment of that admiral this time is not even to deprive the admiral of the admiral's establishment, but to directly shot. High voltage wires cannot be touched. If this is the worst thing that happened in so many years, it can be forgiven, then the ship girl headquarters is not far away from corruption. Then, a warning bell must be sounded to all admirals not to take any chances. While walking on the road, Sugu heard someone say, I know that admiral, who is my generation. His family is very poor. He is usually very economical, probably. Naturally, Washington also heard it. She used to be a lawyer, and she sneered repeatedly. I used to be a lawyer and saw a lot of criminals. They have no remorse at all. Their only regret is that they were caught. In order to steer the judgment in their favor, they kept talking about how miserable their backgrounds were, how they lacked the care of their parents and society when they were young, and how they were abandoned by everyone. There are so many people in this world, and there are so many people who have the same cruel fate. Even if they are a little cruel, they have not committed any crime. Eugene walked beside Sugu and said, Brother and sister, don't be angry. Washington said, Whose brother and sister do you call? Isn't it? Eugene said, This is Sugu, you are wrong. Shut up, Sugu said curiously as he walked down the steps. If the admiral is shot, how will his ship girls react? I don't know. You have to ask the military police to find out. Eugene shook his head and waved his hand. I won't say any more. I want to take my hillman shopping, as I promised earlier. Many garrison offices are in remote cities or even isolated islands. It is rare to come to the big city of Chuangziu, so a good shopping trip is naturally indispensable. Everyone else also had something to do, so everyone separated. Sugu and Washington were going to go back to Shishin's dormitory first to take a look and take a rest, and then wait for the party in the evening. Speaking of which, She also has the key to Zeppelin's dormitory. That girl is amazing. Not only does the college have a dormitory, but there are also 2 small villas in Chuangziu's land, which is very valuable. As an instructor, she earns a lot of money, so she chose to invest in real estate. Unlike Akagi, who ate all her salary, no matter how much she got, she couldn't stop eating. At this time, 2 people were walking on the tree-lined path. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De-rong Yan. Chapter 956. Sishuangziu is located in the south, and it is getting hotter in May. The trees on both sides of the tree-lined path are dense and shady like arches, blocking the direct sunlight. Only a few spots of light fall on the ground, and 1 or 2 light beams, with fine dust flying in the light beams, making it look cool and comfortable. On the road, an admiral whom I knew found a bicycle from nowhere. His wife was sitting sideways on the back seat in a white dress, hugging his waist. Her long hair was dancing in the wind, and her dress was also piaopio. It really seems like that. Another admiral whom he knew was taking the ship's wife with him. The admiral was walking in front, and the ship's wife was walking behind with her hands behind her back. The 2 of them walked slowly, talking as they walked, like an old married couple. Sugu didn't say hello until the other party looked over and then smiled. Walking from the tree-lined path to the intersection, one side leads to the college gate and the other side leads to the dormitory area. They are in opposite directions. On the way to the dormitory area, there are many fewer people here. Walking through the path between the shop and the office building, you can already see the dormitory building. The surrounding trees are lush and green, and there is a pavilion a few steps away. This is where everyone usually rests and walks. As his leather shoes step on the cobblestone path, Sugu thinks of listening to the music in the auditorium. He spoke about those things. The ship girl headquarters has never treated everyone badly. The salary as an admiral is really good. Why do you still do that kind of thing? Let's just say that my views are not correct. I have always believed that a black cat or a white cat is a good cat when it catches mice. Doing nothing is more terrifying than anything else. Corruption is certainly wrong. It is not a big problem to use one's authority to make profits within a certain range and to use channels appropriately. It's bearable, but the things he did were too much. When greed is not enough, no one will complain about too much money. Only people will complain about lack of money. Washington said, when I was a lawyer, I was mainly responsible for the economic aspect. Those big bosses were obviously so rich that they would never be able to use it all in their lifetime. We still deduct money from employees and sell fake and shoddy products to make dirty money. Sugu hesitated to speak. He had not been working for a long time. He had one thing to say. Although the work was not very good, it was not bad either. There really was nothing to complain about. Or maybe he had very low requirements and was using fake and shoddy products. Then there are too many encounters. Sugu said to himself. What the admiral did, his ship's wife must have. If the destroyer, little Lolita, doesn't know, others may as well, but the secretary ship must know a little bit about it. She must not be able to act like a gangster, as a ship girl, otherwise her conscience will fall into the deep sea sooner or later, unless she can deceive her own conscience. There should be persuasion, but unfortunately it is ineffective, and she has no courage to stop it. She is at a loss and lets it go, and in the end she will be doomed. Maybe they were the ones who reported to the gendarmerie and broke the news. That's not right. The deep sea ship girl is a collection of all malice. The ship girl is the incarnation of truth, goodness, and beauty. But to be honest, it is normal for relatives to hide from each other. It is still rare to destroy relatives for justice. Well, think about it again. In order to prevent the admiral from continuing to be obsessed with his ideas, it is still possible I did this kind of thing, but I didn't expect the consequences to be so serious, that I would be shot. If you are just asking for money, there is only a little property damage, not so many lives have been lost, and the impact is too bad. The ship girl headquarters will also protect the shortcomings. Basically, it will be deprived of the admiral establishment, and the maximum is life imprisonment. Sincerely, after so many years, it's not that no admiral has ever made a mistake, but this is the first one. You can still visit him after being imprisoned, but you can only visit his grave every once in a while when he is shot. Place a bouquet of flowers on the grave, a glass of wine, and chat with the tombstone for a while. Anyway, this is enough to make his wife go crazy. Washington, do you think his ship girl will do anything outrageous? As I said before, when the gendarmerie came to the door and knew that the situation was over, the admiral immediately captured him without any further resistance. He even reassured the ship's wife not to risk her life for herself. From this point of view, he is still a gentleman, to a certain extent. Take responsibility. Washington said, being able to gain the approval of a ship girl at least shows that he has truly loved the ship girl before. And there is no point in resisting. The military police's combat effectiveness is not low, especially this time it is a military police officer from the ship girl headquarters. Do it, it's not like a small town government can resist. Don't brag, don't exaggerate, don't belittle yourself, Sugu said. If it were our garrison, even if there were only half of the people, maybe 1/3 of the combat power, it would be difficult for the gendarmerie to deal with it. If one day if it becomes like that, what will you do? Washington curled his lips. You are just a salty admiral. Sugu said, what do you say about your admiral? Have. Sugu subconsciously crossed his arms and muttered. I don't smoke, don't drink, and I don't like gambling. Gambling on boats shouldn't be counted. As for beauty, I don't think anyone can corrupt me, absolutely. In terms of food, I don't like those expensive fish roe, foie gras, bird's nest, etc., especially cat poop coffee. Please forgive me for my incompetence. Some of them are okay, delicious, or nutritious, but most of them, I always feel, are not. The nutrition and taste are no more than the emperor's new clothes. I eat them to a high standard, which is simply IQ taxing. Anyway, I'm not that particular, so I just eat a lot of meat. The company asked me, and the lion also mentioned it once, if I wanted to be the governor, and I said I was not interested. Originally, there were no benefits to being the governor, the salary was not much more, and there were a lot of responsibilities. In short, everyone has his own ambitions, and some people want to conquering the world is not a big idea for me. Ah, really, I suddenly found that I am really a bit salty. It's good to be self-aware, Washington said. Let's not talk about this, Sugu said. In case, I just want to ask, what would you do if I did that? Washington said, don't ask for trouble. If I say we won't help you, will you be unhappy? Won't. Until then, you can never say you don't know. Sugu said to himself, I am very sure that if we ask everyone to extinguish my relatives, no matter what I do, they will never hand me over to the gendarmerie. It must be handled internally. Then again, Sugu said, Lexington's secretaryship, with a reputation as a great steward, and you are so smart, you can definitely detect the signs before I do anything, and then stop them in time. If you don't change your stubbornness, I guess even after I am appointed as the admiral, I am not allowed to interfere in the operation of the garrison, and I am only allowed to eat, drink and have fun. Washington smiled, don't the admiral know? That tutelage house is probably because the ship girl can't afford it, otherwise this situation wouldn't have happened. If it were our tutelary house. Sugu nodded repeatedly, if the family has a good wife, the husband will not suffer any misfortune. Washington said nothing. Not long after, I arrived at Akaga's dormitory and found that it was still the same as before, not dusty. Because people occasionally come to Chuangzhou to play, they often return to the governor's mansion the next day and stay here. Colossus's dormitory is in this building, so he is too lazy to call her a big talker. First, open the window for ventilation, then boil water and make tea. Washington has a cup and Sugu has a cup. The two of them sat cross-legged on the tatami and chatted. Sugu held the teacup. I used to study at the college, and there were dormitories that were much smaller than this one. But at that time, we had rented a room outside. On the one hand, we were used to living there. On the other hand, I also had a small house in Lexington, Gaga, York City, and I had a small house. There was too much room in the dormitory, and it was easy to attract attention, so I continued to live outside. I remember that time, I had a day of classes during the day and came home in the afternoon. The dining table was covered with food. Lexington stood at the door of the kitchen, wearing an apron and holding an iron spoon, saying that the Admiral was back and was ready to eat. Wash your hands first and it feels really good. The conditions used to be very difficult, but now they are full of warmth when he thinks about it. Sugu said a lot, and he remembered that he had not taken Washington for a good walk. Well, Washington, do you want me to take you around for a while, inside the college? That's fine, Washington said, standing up. Let's do some exercise, it's too stuffy here. Don't be impatient, drink this cup of tea first, Sugu said. I found that, Washington, you are actually a bit arrogant, even if it's just a little bit. Just say it if you want to, if you have to find some other reasons. Then don't go, Washington said. He's getting more and more arrogant. Washington made a serious face and put his hands behind his waist. Sugu immediately raised his hands in surrender. Okay, I made a mistake. Put down the axe. After leaving the dormitory building and walking through the cafeteria, library, and main square, Sugu introduced Washington and talked about the interesting things that happened there, while saying, "It suddenly occurred to me that the two of us came out without telling South Dakota that she did not come out, must be very angry now." Sugu thought to himself, it was like this before. There was no problem if he was alone, as long as he and Washington were together. When he went to the front-line base, the two of them had to deal with all kinds of things. South Dakota had to follow. "Admiral, if you don't mention it, I haven't discovered it yet." Washington laughed. "That little fat girl must be very angry now. The thought of her being angry makes me happy." Sugu said, "Washington is the same. He bullies others every day." Washington said, "When did I bully her?" Sugu said, "She usually writes love letters to me, but she doesn't have any writing skills. She writes messy things. And what kind of rouge, blush, and lipstick are she wearing? Her hair is also standing up like a stick. Including her. Those weird clothes, bright red and green clothes, you must have coaxed and instigated her to do it." "I didn't force her." Sugu said, "I'm really surprised. South Dakota has been bullied by you 10,000 times and turned into a joke in the town hall, but she still believes what you say. Because she's stupid, she's just a little better than Quincy. Quincy is very wise, but she is actually very smart. You see, King, you can't do anything to her. That little fat guy is probably the stupidest in the town hall. I have to say that she is really big-hearted and has a good psychological quality. She never gets angry no matter what and forgets about it the next day. Heartless." For the sake of harmony in the garrison, Sugu said, "Well, Washington can't bully others too much." "What kind of bullying?" "I don't want to bully her, it's her who always comes to trouble me," Washington said. "When I read a book, that little fat guy came over to spoil it. When I read a detective novel, she said which one was the murderer. Forget it, the most hateful time was. Asshole, I was tricked by her too," Washington said. She told me who the murderer was. I kept watching and thinking about it. Finally, the murderer appeared, but it was not the person she said. I am still thinking about what happened next. There must be some kind of twist, I won't figure it out until the end of the book. Ah, I'm going to blow her head off. Sugu thought to himself that he was troubled by a detective novel when he encountered CV-16 before. Could South Dakota be the murderer? She is definitely not that witty and can trick people. She probably read that novel and was inspired by it. Sugu didn't know what Washington was talking about, but he knew one thing: I remember she likes to show off her ring in front of you the most. It's not a wedding. The little fat guy is so shameless about the ring. Washington rubbed his forehead. It's really annoying. She shows off in front of me every day and snatches her ring away once. I can be quiet for a moment or two. Oh my God, I will be back to my old ways soon. Is this a reminder to myself? Sugu walked for a while and thought to himself. It's not like he was stuck in a tree. He knew Washington's feelings for him. Why was he still unmarried until now? Sugu paused in his steps. Washington shouted, "Admiral!" It's okay, Sugu said subconsciously. It's easy for Washington to want him, he's so beautiful and capable, isn't he? If the Admiral proposes, I agree. Washington never denies that he likes it. Luo Yingshen acts as fearless, probably, but as a strong woman, even if he likes it, it won't be like falling in love with Cologne, Wichita, etc. Behave like that. Sugu suddenly remembered something and laughed. I agree too. Admiral, what did you suddenly say? Don't you have that one in Washington? Do I have anything? The last time again, in the defensive battle, when everyone defeated Fukumai Yamato, Ryajo, and Ziwikaku in the attack, everyone was an MVP. I agree to one of your requests. Washington, what you want is a piece of paper. Sign it and stamp it. It's a blank contract with seals and fingerprints, whatever. Do you want anything else? I've been thinking, what does Washington want? A ring? A marriage certificate? I've never seen you use one. It's been several years. If I didn't think of it today, I would have forgotten. Sugu suddenly noticed that Washington's expression changed in an instant. After a while, he quickly returned to normal, but there was still a little worry on his face. Washington, are you okay? Fine. Has Washington decided what it wants? Sugu said, otherwise, it will really expire. Not yet. Washington suddenly asked, shall we go back tonight? Sugu replied, if you don't reply, didn't you say there was a party? I'm afraid it will be too late by the time it's over. The two continued walking, and Sugu found that Washington had been absent-minded. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 957. Indeed. South Dakota is angry. Very angry, the kind that can't be coaxed. In fact, it is easy to coax. As long as consultant so casually says a few nice words afterwards, such as South Dakota is super cute, I just forgot, otherwise no one can take it, except South Dakota and other similar words, it can't even be coaxed. If necessary, you don't have to wait until the next day, it will be fine within a few hours. It seemed that when he learned at breakfast time that the Admiral and Washington were going to Sichuan show, South Dakota was very angry. He banged the dining table several times and ate several large meat buns and a large glass of milk in one go, turning his grief and anger into appetite. I took a nap at noon, and when I woke up, everything was fine. I met Mahan to go racing together, and a traffic accident happened by the way. Just be afraid. For example, there was another booing during dinner time. There was really no shortage of people stirring up trouble in the governor's house. There were quite a few of them. Of course, no one had any ill intentions. They didn't mean to sow discord, they were just trying to make people laugh. South Dakota was not happy about it again. In the lively cafeteria, little Lolita were running around. Helena scolded and immediately quieted down. In the front row near the pillar, Guam sat opposite South Dakota, stirring a strand of long blue hair over and over with her fingers. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Admiral, why can Washington do it but South Dakota can't? South Dakota said, yeah. I don't know why, but I always have a feeling, and my feeling has always been very good. There is an Alaska, her left hand is on the table to support the side of her face, and her right hand is holding a fork and putting a meatball into her mouth. What's the matter? It's almost half a day, but they haven't come back yet. What have they been doing? MRSCV-1616, the latecomer from Mutsu is ahead, but she doesn't have a ring yet. Let's not talk about her, but Missouri, Richelieu, and Yison have already succeeded. They are seeing one by one surpass themselves, and Zhanghe, Wichita, Dumplings, Raiders, and many other opponents. To be fair, if Washington doesn't worry. Before Nevada could finish speaking, Oklahoma said, "Sister, I'm reminding you, if you don't seek death, you won't die. If you do it again, you will be naked and helping in the cafe." Nevada, it's okay. Washington is not in the garrison and will not appear suddenly. Guam waved his hand. Even if she finds out about it, she will cause trouble for you, in the garrison, except for the admiral, all the girls are girls. As for the admiral, take a look. Just take a look, as his ship girl, you can't find another man anyway. No, forget it. Nevada hesitated for a long time, but decided to give up and start eating honestly now. South Dakota, I bet, do you believe it or not, Alaska was not that scared, only her expression was solemn. Admiral and Washington, the two of them must be shopping now, holding hands. Guam thought for a while and said, they should be buying clothes now. Washington is trying on clothes. She has tried on several pieces. There are beautiful dresses with ruffled necklines, lantern sleeves at the cuffs, and skirts that reach to her knees. There's a bat shirt, a lace base layer, and now a white shirt. Now that they have bought clothes, they are going to the jewelry store again. Alaska said, South Dakota, the admiral hasn't taken you to buy jewelry yet. No, South Dakota replied. She thought that they usually go out together to go shopping and eat. The food court is a must-go place. Sister Guam patted Alaska on the shoulder. In fact, her real goal was South Dakota. Do you think the admiral will be there and buy all the oath rings and matching rings? Alaska nodded, it's possible. South Dakota imagined the scene. Washington was sitting at the counter of the jewelry store. The admiral put a ring on her left ring finger and angrily said, "Stop talking. How can it be so easy to give up? Who told you that South Dakota has no majesty? If Washington slaps the axe, no one will dare to speak, and they will all be trembling little rabbits and quails. We are eating, and they should be ready to eat too. Which restaurant should we go to?" Guam continued. She was quite familiar with Sichuan show and had been there everywhere. That floating Western restaurant in Yangtze Outpost, the decoration stylish, beautiful surroundings, and delicious food. Enjoy a romantic candlelight dinner while listening to music. Alaska crossed her arms and said, "Ah, our poor South Dakota. How could it be possible, how could it be possible, how could it be possible, to leave me behind?" South Dakota rambled on, holding the fork and poking the bottom of the bowl over and over again. "The admiral is so hateful, isn't he?" Guam asked. South Dakota said, "No, it's Washington." Guam was speechless for a moment. Yes, the emperor was definitely not at fault, only the ministers and eunuchs were at fault. "What should I do? What should I do?" Alaska said. "When Washington becomes a wedding ship, South Dakota, you see how she bullies you, she will definitely give you little shoes, and you will never get close to the admiral again." South Dakota hesitated for a while. She can't beat me. The battleship South Dakota is an improved design based on the North Carolina class battleship. A battleship is a battleship, and a ship girl is a ship girl. She might not have been able to beat you before, but now. Guam laughed. Since I grew up, hasn't it been a piece of cake for Washington to beat you? I can also grow up. When I grow up. South Dakota said, that pig's feet stewed with peanuts and the white-haired devil girl, I squashed her 8 times a day. But Washington has been growing up for 2 years, and you haven't done anything at all, Guam said. Otherwise, I might be able to imitate Richelieu and beat up the Admiral. South Dakota said, no, you can't hit the Admiral. I like the Admiral the most. Guam thought to himself, the little fat man is quite persistent in these aspects. Kirishima, where is Kirishima? I'm going to beat her to death. Beating her to death will definitely make her grow, South Dakota yelled. Is there any way to stop the two of them? Guam tapped his lips with slender fingers, pretending to think, come to Chuangziu to stop them now. No way, even if you rush there, you can't find them. Even if you find it, it will definitely be cooked now. Sighing, South Dakota lay on the dining table, pursed his lips, and looked aggrieved. Guam said, the power is out, the power is going to be out. During the Battle of Guadalcanal in history, South Dakota's shockwave when No. 3 turret fired suffocated the main switch, causing several generator units to trip at the same time, resulting in a power outage for the entire ship for about 3 minutes. Nowadays, this experience is often used in a negative light. Okay, stop bullying South Dakota. Lexington happened to pass by and touched South Dakota's head. Our South Dakota is so cute, the Admiral likes it very much. South Dakota looked at Lexington with tears in her eyes, her favorable opinion of Lexington rising by several percentage points. Guam said, cute is cute, but a little darker, little black girl. South Dakota retorted, it's the color of wheat, the color of health. Guam added, I'm a little fatter. Not fat at all. South Dakota tugged on the flesh on his arm, this is meat, this is plumpness. Do you understand? Bamboo poles and opium ghosts, no one likes them. Alaska smiled, yes, plump, but a little short, so she looks fat. The hull width of the South Dakota is similar to that of the North Carolina class. The problem is that the length of the hull is much shorter, even shorter than that of a heavy cruiser. Not to mention Des Moines, it is shorter than Prince Eugene. They are all shuttle-shaped, only it is teardrop-shaped. Veneto is shorter than me, South Dakota said. Veneto, who was sitting not far away, noticed that South Dakota was looking at him, and he was keenly aware that he must be teasing him again. He suddenly felt a little tired, even South Dakota was no longer there. Guam said, still rustic, country girl. Ah, how can you be so demeaning? South Dakota went crazy, and she suddenly jumped at the table, stop talking, or I will beat you. I can't beat Washington, it's okay to beat you. Oklahoma sipped soup, it's none of my business. Soon after dinner, South Dakota returned to the dormitory. Since we returned to the townhouse together, the rooms were basically the same. Passing by Washington's room, she stopped and thought about punching and kicking Washington's door a few times. Then he stopped. The townhouse is a home, and there is no reason to lock the door and then use the key to open the door every day. Washington's door was unlocked, and South Dakota opened it as soon as he turned the doorknob, and she walked in. Walk around and take a look at the ornaments placed on the desk, including a globe, paperweight, hourglass, vase, etc. There are also many documents and a pen resting on it. Of course she didn't break the nib of the pen or throw ink on Washington's clothes and sheets. She just picked it up and wrote on a piece of scratch paper, Washington is a big idiot. What ugly curtains. Lots of books. It's pretty neat. As he spoke, South Dakota threw himself on Washington's bed again, pulled Washington's pillow and beat it several times to vent his anger. Then he found a book on the bedside, the Civil Evidence Act with a thick cover, and picked it up and smashed it. After 2 clicks, a piece of well-folded paper fell out. Even if he knew about the diary, he wouldn't deliberately flip through it. It was just a piece of paper. South Dakota picked it up out of curiosity and opened it. Is this a marriage certificate? Love letter? Or a prenuptial agreement? Is that the Admiral's signature, seal, and fingerprints? There was a sudden voice, and South Dakota turned around, only to see Nevada. I found that the door of Washington's room was wide open, so I walked in curiously and took a look. It seemed that I saw something extraordinary. The more I know, the faster I will die. I still want to live for another 500 years. Nevada laughed dryly and said as he stepped back. It's not me, I didn't see anything, I don't know anything. Although she was usually noisy with Washington, if she caught Washington in trouble, she wouldn't mind making a good joke or even publicizing it. At this time, South Dakota knew very well that he would die, and Axe would never pretend to be a show-off. She folded the paper again. Tucked into the book. The books were put away, the pillows were also put away, and the pillows were patted lightly. South Dakota nodded, exactly the same, and finally climbed out of the bed carefully walked out of the door, looked for any footprints, and then closed the door. Ah! Just as he walked into the corridor, South Dakota saw a dark figure and jumped up in fright. When he saw clearly who it was, he finally felt relieved and said, "Nevada, you're going to scare me to death." Nevada had gone back to the room, but she couldn't bear to come out. She was afraid something would happen, so she had to emphasize, "Little fat man, you know." I know. On this side, the party is in the cafeteria, which can be considered lively, mainly to give everyone a chance to communicate. From the beginning to the end, Sugu did not leave his seat or go anywhere. At most, people came over, so he chatted a few words because he found something was wrong with the situation in Washington. He shook a glass of red wine without taking a sip, looking very worried. Sugu asked again, "What does Washington want?" "Think nothing. Not comfortable." "It's okay." Washington casually found an excuse. I just remembered that the door was not closed, and I was a little worried." Sugu said, "If you don't close it, don't close it. Are you still worried about thieves in the guardhouse? Maybe in South Dakota, for example, she was the thief," Washington said. "And I don't remember the lights were off. There was water. I used to be like this." Sugu thought to himself. Every time he goes out, he must turn on the faucet, check all the lights one by one, and care whether the door is closed properly. I went back and pushed the door. I don't know if it counts as obsessive-compulsive disorder. Not being an idiot, Sugu asked again, "Is that it?" "That's it." Washington noticed that Sugu was worried. She took a deep breath and thought that she couldn't go on like this. "It's okay." Washington drank the red wine in one gulp and tried to smile. At the same time, he thought to himself that it was impossible to be discovered. His sister would not just enter his room, and she didn't like to rummage around, and it was impossible for others to do so. It's rare to go out with the Admiral once, so don't scare yourself. Really, I took a look at it and put it under my pillow at night. Why did I forget to put it away? Okay. Washington didn't want to say anything, and Sugu couldn't press him, so he spoke again, "Let's have something to eat." Sugu stood up, "Let me get you some." "What do you want to eat?" "No, I'll go by myself." Washington found a plate and walked to the long table where the food was placed. He picked up a few steamed scallops with garlic vermicelli and a sea cucumber roasted with green onions. He did not continue to take the food and suddenly stood still, saying that he was not worried. "Still quite worried? Sister-in-law." Washington quickly stopped worrying because she heard a familiar voice, which was full of surprise and surprise. This is really unexpected. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De-Rong Yan. Chapter 958. Sister-in-law. Big Sister Washington. It's really you. I looked at it for a long time and didn't dare to recognize it. Washington looked in the direction from which the voice came, and saw a pretty girl standing there. She had shoulder-length blonde wavy short hair. The ends of her hair were slightly tilted outwards, making her look very fashionable. Her lips were tightly pursed and she looked a little serious. The white gendarmerie uniform paired with long boots looks neat and capable. In the past, as a lawyer, I stayed away from the admirals and shipwives and rarely had contact with the military police. Now I have returned to the town and have not many contacts. After all, it is strange that a serious town has a rare opportunity to deal with the military police. Admiral Hipper was a former military policeman, as was Blucher. Plan M occasionally came to the garrison, and there were others. In fact, he knew a lot of military policemen, but the girl in front of him really didn't have much of an impression, but she had a real appearance. There is something familiar, yet strange. The other party happens to know me, and I feel familiar. I must be an acquaintance, but who are you? The eldest sister doesn't recognize me anymore. I'm sad. The girl subconsciously touched her face as she spoke. She had been a military policeman for several years and had seen too many cunning admirals. She had to keep a straight face at all times, with a ferocious look and a playful smile. Of course, some of the smiling tigers in the military police were very powerful, but it was a pity that they had to do it themselves. Otherwise, it will be difficult to make progress in anything. Yes, we haven't seen each other for many years, at least 4 years, and I have changed a lot now, so it's not surprising that we don't recognize each other. The girl put down the plate on the dining table with many fruits and snacks on it, and spread her hands. Hair, how are you now, do you remember? After hesitating, Washington finally remembered something. Omaha, are you Omaha? Yeah. Omaha put his hands behind his back. Sister, you finally remembered me. You've changed a lot, Washington said. Hey. Did you join the gendarmerie and become a gendarmerie? Yes, I am an honorable military policeman now. Omaha stretched out his hand to smooth his hair and picked out his bangs. I look like this now. I'm very handsome, and also cold. Washington laughed. I didn't expect it at all beforehand. I just attended a party and met my former companions, and it wasn't long before everyone returned to the townhouse. In my impression, I am a lively and outspoken girl from Omaha. She has twin tails. She is very cute. To be honest, she is a bit inconspicuous. Her favorite thing to do is to check for contraband. Unfortunately, the targets of inspection are Nevada and others, and they are all extremely vicious. So there is no result. I have always dreamed of becoming a police sergeant. The reason is probably that in history, although the Omaha-class cruisers participated in World War II, they basically did not participate in any front-line operations. Because of this, none of them were sunk. Good luck. Most of them used for coastal patrol, transportation, escort, anti-smuggling and other tasks. There is a slight difference between a military policeman and a police sergeant, but to some extent there are many similarities. Is this considered as fulfilling one's ideal? When she returned to the town hall, the little guys in the town hall who drank secretly and hid the wine in the dormitory and drank slowly, such as Deutsch, Scheer, Spee, Trust, Changchun, etc., had a hard time, and there were many little Lolita. Collecting contraband items, such as firecrackers, etc., will be difficult in the future. The benefits are very good and the salary is very high. The only problem is that I am too busy. I am busy from morning to night, sometimes until late at night, and there is no chance to close my eyes in front of his former companion and the eldest sister. There's no need to pretend, Omaha says. Sleep deprivation is a girl's worst enemy. Especially this time. I have been working hard for this case for several months, running around every day, Omaha complained. It's finally over. I originally wanted to take a few days to relax, but I was too tired from traveling. Who knew that this kind of thing would happen again? So he went to the academy to carry out publicity and education, and warn those admirals not to make the same problem. That's right, Omaha seemed to be a bit chatty, but he was mainly excited. I forgot to ask the eldest sister why you are here? Let me think about it. Since you appear here, you must be in a nearby ship, girl. Work in a branch, or simply be an instructor at Sichuan College. If that's you, there will be no problem. The boss's boss is the captain of the gendarmerie. Although for the gendarmerie, it is not the combat team that faces the deep-sea ship girl all day long. They basically deal with the admiral and the ship girl. There is no chance to take action, but they have seen her strength. In terms of equipment and training level, they are far behind Washington. They are just senior, but their momentum is quite strong. No, not at all. I'm not in the ship girl branch, and I'm not an instructor here, Washington said with a smile. If I were you, I would pay more attention to the surroundings. Look behind you. Behind? What's behind? Omaha turned around and saw the admirals chatting and socializing in the hall. There were also many ship girls walking around. There was a little lowly who got under the table for some reason, exposing her big breasts. The butt makes people a little concerned, but other than that there is nothing special about it. Or do you miss the point? Did you go away? Washington thought, and found that he was still where he was, eating. Window, said Washington. Look who's sitting next to the window. Omaha looked over, his eyes narrowed little by little, showing a familiar profile. Admiral Sue. He was worried about Washington, but he was worried because he had to eat the lobster. When Sugu was tasting the lobster, he found a girl in a military police uniform sitting next to him. Of course, he couldn't recognize the girl's true identity. It's the difference between reality and games. The girl introduced herself. I am a gendarmerie attached to the gendarmerie of the ship girl headquarters. Sugu nodded, non-committal. The girl frowned. I heard that you abandoned the ship girl in the past. Do you know the consequences of abandoning the ship girl? It's not abandonment, there's a reason. Sugu didn't explain much. He didn't know where the other party knew this news, but it wasn't surprising that he knew it. He never thought of hiding it from the beginning, so now many people know it and just think about it. The military police just like to meddle in other people's business, although it is indeed a responsible behavior. Then again, my situation is considered special, otherwise similar things would basically not happen. How can an ordinary admiral have such courage? The hatchet from the ship girl is very dangerous. Even if it does happen, the military police will mediate it. Lord, education and agreement are painless. Ship girls are really not short of money. They need care. Hypocritical visits are useless. Okay, don't make trouble. Washington appeared behind the girl, slapped her on the head, and then turned to Sugu. Admiral, this is Omaha. Omaha. Sugu thought to himself that the unmodified graphics in the game were barely adequate. Since they could be modified, he had better practice it. After the transformation, the graphics were very good, but the data was a bit pitiful. There was no change before and after, and there were not many skills. The usefulness, the protection was lost, and it was no longer useful, so it was left alone from now on. He recalled that at the beginning, he was also a very diligent admiral. As long as the ship could be modified, he basically practiced it. In just half a year, the strength of the fleet exceeded 3,000. How was it like later, when he practiced dragging a ship? completely transformed into Admiral of Grass. The Admiral has actually been back for several years. When Sugu talked about himself and the town hall, Omaha spoke in surprise. Lion, Vanguard, and Queen Elizabeth, are they also at the ship girl headquarters? But we are in different systems. They are responsible for diplomacy and travel from country to country. We also travel everywhere and rarely stay at the ship girl headquarters. At CSI, it's not surprising that I haven't seen him before. When Sugu mentioned the Lion, Omaha was surprised. I'm so busy that I don't even have time to read it, but I've heard a little bit about it. I mentioned that magazine again, the magazine that introduced naval battles. Anyone who has read it will definitely know the existence of the garrison. Omaha complained about the military police. The work is too busy. After chatting for a while, when Sugu went to pick up food again, someone tapped him on the shoulder. It was Admiral Jihu, whom he knew. "Su, you are really amazing." "Consultant Su, what's so big?" "It's only been a few minutes, and I hooked up with another ship girl, and she's from the gendarmerie." Sugu was stunned for a moment and suddenly realized, don't use the word sex up, okay, 100% fishing for the ship girl. You can brag, well, you go and try it. I will believe you only if you succeed. If it weren't for his ship girl, no one else would be able to do anything. When Sugu turned around and saw Dean Gentil, this one really couldn't do it. Akagi used to be an instructor in the college and had so many suitors that he couldn't even count them. Do's instructor Zeppelin is sexy and coquettish, and she has many suitors. Headmaster Warspite can be considered a wandering ship girl because she doesn't have an admiral, but almost no warrior dares to take action against her. Obviously, as long as she is a beautiful girl, it does not matter even if she is 500 or 10,000 years old. She met the victory at the front line base and was a contemporary of Warpity. She also imagined that Nelson and Rodney would kidnap her and return her to the guard mansion. War exhaustion is really special, the veterans will not die, even if Queen Elizabeth returns to the garrison, she will have no idea at all. It has always been hard to imagine that Zeppelin said that Grandma also had her youth. What did the royal posture look like at that time, and how chic was it? Anyway, I've seen Zeppelin's royal stance, but I didn't feel anything about it. In order for her to perform, I had to agree to create opportunities for her to get close to the little Lolita, this girl, alas. After bidding farewell to Jihu, Sugu met the captain of the gendarmerie again, who was from the company. He was curious and asked how the company's situation was now. The company had not found a replacement yet, and it was still the same. It seemed that the situation was not too optimistic. Need to wait again. Has Akagi been an instructor here before? This is her dormitory. Do you live here? Until the end of the party at night, everyone returned to Akagi's dormitory. Colossus took the initiative to run over and sit down for a while. Omaha actually knew this girl and had met her twice. Her chatty nature was impressive. Omaha didn't stay here for long before leaving. Back to the guest house, Sugu and Washington had a good chat before going to bed. Of course, nothing special happened. Sugu was still thinking about Omaha, which was really unexpected. As for Washington, it seems like everything is fine, but is it really? Returned to the town hall the next morning. Sugu leads Omaha. Washington strode straight back to her room. The room was still the same as before. No one should have been there. Thinking of this, she pulled open the pillow and took out the piece of paper from the Civil Evidence Act. She immediately realized that something was wrong. Remember, it was not on this page last time. Someone has seen it? Who is it? Washington stuffed the Civil Evidence Act into the bookshelf, and the piece of paper naturally moved to another place. After finishing everything, she returned to the coffee shop. How was the date? Guam said. Did Washington take down the admiral? Alaska said, Washington, remind you, you won't be able to do it if you don't work hard anymore. As a barrister who is good at finding any loopholes and details, Washington discovered the problem almost instantly. Others were normal. Guam and Alaska teased him normally. Nevada saw that he didn't talk too much and just chatted a few words. In addition, South Dakota didn't get angry and took the initiative to trouble him. At the same time, the two of them kept paying attention to him. That worried look, they were feeling guilty. With a sneer, Washington was sure that these two people had something going on in their minds and had definitely seen something. Therefore, the only choice is to kill and silence them, and they will all die. Which one is better to choose, to kill an owl with an axe and watch blood splatter in the air, or to take a sip of wine, throw down the glass, lift the axe and split the person in half? Another question is, if these two people discovered something, why did the others seem to know nothing? Is it not spread? Impossible. Washington shook his head. Washington doesn't know that Missouri gossip, huge surprises, and fun are coming again, feasts, there's nothing she can do against everyone, right? Her gossip, her secrets, can only be frightened. How dare Nevada and South Dakota dare to speak to others, for fear of causing complications and axes? Nevada and South Dakota were laughing, and Washington took a deep breath. She had a headache. What should she do now, or take it one step at a time? Washington felt uncomfortable, scratched his hair, sat on a wicker chair, and looked at the sea through the glass window. Why did he let himself encounter this kind of thing? No, I often walked by the river without getting my shoes wet. I used to be very careful. I am too relaxed now, there will be a day. The strange performance of Nevada and South Dakota was actually also strange in the eyes of outsiders. Washington actually did not tease South Dakota as usual. Anyway, Wisconsin was eating snacks, smiling lightly, waiting for when the show would start. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 959. Omaha returned to the garrison and rested for several days. Doing nothing is not the answer, do something. She was not the first gendarme. It had to be said that the gendarme played no role in the garrison. It seems that Admiral Hipper used to be the captain of the military police. No admiral should be shy to say hello when he went out. Now he is back in the townhouse and pestering others every day. Well, she has personal reasons. Everyone has a destiny. Nemesis. Blucher's mysterious self-confidence was not a reliable person to begin with. Tianlong and Long Tian were serious people. When they returned to the town hall, they wanted to be the disciplinary committee members. However, there is a certain person who plays with the little lowly unscrupulously every day and does not listen to advice at all. It's not anyone's fault, it's definitely the fault of Helena, Colorado, Mutsu, and Missouri, which is just a little better, plus Richelieu. Wow, no one was spared from so many wedding ships. Who are you kneeling in the hall? Why are you suing me? I cried countless bitter tears, and in the end I could only be a teacher or nanny. To sum up, Omaha is no exception. There is no hope of doing anything. I can only look for returning to my old job and do some work such as patrolling and anti-smuggling. Nevada, what other contraband did you bring? What kind of contraband did I bring? Nevada looked like a rogue, poker, or this pistol. Washington's face was straight, and Nevada was stunned. It might even be just a boring question. She could tell everything she had done in the past 10 months to show that she was wronged. But compared to Omaha, who is weaker than him, he is a battleship. He has returned to the garrison for so long, and occasionally studied, trained, and practiced. Now his training level is not low, so his attitude is different. She is very bully and afraid of the strong. Is Omaha acting like a military policeman? I used to be a gangster. When walking on the street, who wouldn't nod and bend down and call me a gangster? Nevada sneered. Forget it, I'll forgive you this time. You have to find a way down, otherwise it will be too shameless, Omaha said. Big Sister Washington still carries an axe with her. Aren't you going to check her out? Nevada said reluctantly. Do you think I'm easy to bully? Let me tell you, I'm not easy to bully either. Omaha said, what Sister Washington wears on her head is not an axe, but truth. In the corridor, Omaha saw Bazai and raised his hand to say hello, Bazai. Bazai looked sneaky, and she felt guilty. Oh, Omaha. What's hidden in your clothes? I don't understand what you mean. Bazai pretended to be confused and looked around. Anyone with a little bit of intelligence would know that there is something weird. Omaha said, let me see. No. Bazai hugged his stomach with both hands and shook his head repeatedly. The notebook was hidden in his clothes and he would never take it out. There is only so much fun in life. There are 10 fingers to count, and no one can be missing. It's a book, right? Everyone in the entire garrison knew about Bazai's bad character, and Omaha naturally understood it very well. Poor Bismarck, even though there is a huge gap between the real person and the comics, it would still be embarrassing if his notebook is seen by outsiders. However, his sister refuses to change despite repeated admonitions, and he cannot really be beaten to death or maimed. Fortunately, Zai has not learned bad things yet. I still have something to do. The Admiral asked me to come over and leave first, even if it's Bazai. You can mutter the Admiral is looking for me and it's too late and similar words, turn around and walk away, speed up, and change. It started with a trot, and finally a big run, and then quickly disappeared from the sight of Omaha. The lazy house who doesn't like sports also has this day. On the road leading to the dormitory building, under the dense banyan tree. Mutsu, what is that thing on your hand? It is filled with suspicious liquid. What is it used for? Mutsu looked up and saw Omaha. He put his hands behind his back and hid the small glass bottle. You guys are amazing at beauty. You don't care about me. I really don't care about you today. This time, Omaha wasn't actually out to take action. She was reporting to enforce the law. Missouri appeared behind Omaha. She had been observing Mutsu for a long time. She got the suspicious potion from Yuberry's hand and was smiling happily all the way. She must be thinking of some bad idea. Oh, little secretary, come on, let's practice, Mutsu said, rolling up his sleeves and exposing his white and tender arms. Although as a battleship, the King's ship in the Shichibukai cannot compare with the new battleship Missouri in terms of ship equipment parameters, but in terms of training, she still has some confidence. Of course the same goes for body shape. Why do you have to pull me? Wisconsin complained with his arms crossed, his long black stocking legs really invincible. She has lived with Missouri for so long now and has feelings for each other. She is considered a good sister, not just a sister in terms of the model of the battleship soul she inherited. Sister Nagato is training at the dock and can't make it. 2 fists are no match for 4, and a vicious tiger is still afraid of a pack of wolves. Mutsu admits defeat. You win. Missouri took the small glass bottle from Mutsu's hand and smelled it, only to smell a strange smell. Omaha took the small glass bottle and smelled it too, but she couldn't figure out why. She asked out of curiosity, this is what? Drink, Mutsu said, drink. Omaha said, since it is a drink, you take a sip. I won't drink. Mutsu turned his head. Wisconsin said, it must be something like that, an aphrodisiac or something. What kind of strange thing do you want to give the Admiral to drink? Missouri said, anyway, it's confiscated. That afternoon, Missouri found Yuberry in the laboratory and wanted to destroy the illegal suppliers, but was it really for the purpose of destroying them? Yuberry sat in front of the experimental table, tinkering with something. She had no time to talk to Missouri, so she waved her hands. It's just a random addition of something to the water, it's useless. Even if it's me, I'm not that powerful to make such magical potions casually. And even if it is made, it has not been clinically tested. How dare I give it to the Admiral to drink? If I feel a little uncomfortable, Lexington and the others will probably tear me apart. I don't want to die just yet. Actually, it still has some effects, such as psychological effects. Think about it, the Admiral noticed that the taste was wrong as soon as he drank it, and when he finally asked, he found out that it was an aphrodisiac. He was originally a pervert, but he was also a coward. Self-comfort and deception were the result of potions. With the effect, everything became possible all of a sudden. That night. Missouri, what did you give me to drink? After Sugu finished drinking the drink handed over by Missouri, he realized that the taste was wrong. Missouri was wearing a sexy black thin lace nightgown. She smiled charmingly, blinked her eyes, and trembled her eyelashes. It's not an exaggeration to say that she is a peerless enchantress. I got it from Yuberry. Can you guess what it does? Could it be? Sugu had a rich imagination, and it was mainly a matter of occasion. The bedroom, the late night, the blurry lights, the charming beauty, all together there was only one answer. Missouri put his hands on Sugu's shoulders. Yes, that's it, she succeeded. He couldn't do it 10 times, but, anyway, when Sugu was unable to hug Missouri, Missouri curled up in his arms and smiled proudly, thinking that he would prepare a good breakfast for the Admiral tomorrow and make sure to supplement his nutrition. It's the next day again. In Hindenburg's room, Missouri put her hands on her hips and laughed. Hindenburg, do you know what you just drank? Hindenburg tried not to show his timidity. Missouri chuckled. Does your face feel hot? He didn't feel anything at first, but Hindenburg subconsciously touched his face and felt a little feverish. Missouri asked again, do you feel like your whole body is starting to heat up? You drank too, Hindenburg said. After all, she would not drink anything Missouri brought casually. Yes, I drank, Missouri said, but I am a wedding ship, and you are not. Hindenburg's imagination is also quite full, could it be? Missouri said, yes, that's right, just get ready, the Admiral will be here soon. Despicable, obscene, and shameful, Hindenburg cursed. It's useless. No, I will never give in. Take off your clothes, don't be shy. Missouri took Hindenburg's hand. I promise, just once, you will definitely like it. Don't come, Hindenburg shouted as he backed away, thinking, is there really any medicine that is effective for ship girls? Maybe. Until Hindenburg was stripped down to his underwear, Missouri rolled on the bed and laughed. Sure enough, Hindenburg, you like him, now it's exposed. Now, when did it start? The level gap between the girl and the young woman was so great that Hindenburg huddled in the corner. I don't understand what you are talking about. There are no aphrodisiacs. Missouri explained. Hindenburg said, you are fooling me. I'm just teasing you, how about it? Missouri stuck out her tongue and spoke again. You obviously have the strength to resist so weakly, but you gave up in the end, which shows that you don't resist at all, otherwise you would rather be broken into pieces than destroyed. Hindenburg said, no. What they say, no matter what they think in their hearts, except for Hindenburg, no one else can guarantee 100%. Anyway, if there is, it's definitely a certain madam who is causing the trouble. Originally, it was easy for something to happen between the Admiral and the ship girl, otherwise they wouldn't have recognized it at the beginning. Even Deathwing can't stand someone whispering in his ear all day long. He had no idea at first, but there is someone who keeps talking in his ear, and he likes it even if he doesn't like it. Yes, absolutely, Missouri said decisively. Hindenburg blushed and shouted, get out of here. Missouri hugged Hindenburg and blew into her ear. Hindenburg, We are sisters, we were sisters a long time ago. Let us be real sisters. It's okay, don't be afraid, I will accompany you. You old bastard. Hindenburg pushed Missouri away and panted, don't you have a sister? Go find her. Wisconsin. Missouri smiled, no one lives forever. Let her be arrogant. When it's her turn next, no one can escape. Devil, you devil. That, the above are all things for later. There is no one who dares to hide contraband secretly, so Omaha chose to make trouble for the little Lolita. Under the leadership of Helena, she checked the dormitories one by one. The room in the small house is full of dolls, big and small. If they hadn't been given away so many, they would have been piled up. Omaha opened the drawer and noticed something keenly. She asked, Cher, what is this? Cher replied, it's not a cigar, it's a torpedo. I just hold it in my mouth for fun. You can't even play with it in your mouth, Helena said, confiscated. I just wanted to check Xiaoli Iden, I can't believe it, I can't believe it, it's you. With the help of Omaha, Helena found a half-left bottle of white wine. Can you please explain where this bottle of white wine is coming? Trust lowered his head. Helena said, you little furry girl. I believe she is not a little girl in nature. The real little girl in Changchun has a big box under her bed, which contains vodka, urquatu, brandy, sanhua, and many more. Tashkent was slightly better, and unexpectedly nothing was discovered. Engels betrayed the revolution long ago, and she is now a Coca-Cola party. Apples, pears, mangoes, oranges, canned peaches, citrus jelly, assorted jelly. No need for Omaha inspection. Helena walked into the U-boat dormitory and it was clear at a glance, U-96, why is there so much food on your bed? Ah, it's the same in the cabinet and the drawer. Helena tapped her forehead. U-96 whispered, mine. Can't you even eat well? U-47 lay on the bed, feeling sorry for U-96. It's not impossible, Helena said, this is too much. U-96 said weakly, mine. Hamster disease, Helena said, don't hide so much. As long as you stay in the garrison, you won't be short of food. U-96 said, my. This is Miu's dormitory again. Archerfish, why do you have so many bikinis here? Omaha thought to himself. She was obviously just a little girl, but she was wearing clothes bigger than her. It was too much, and she might be sunk by a depth charge. The archerfish said, we are submarines, we can dive through them. Omaha said, isn't there a dead reservoir of water? I also have water from the dead bank. The big mackerel stood in front of the closet, pointing to a bikini and smiling, this is a gift from the admiral. No, I didn't. Sugu was joining in the fun and found that everyone was looking at him, making him a big scapegoat. The big mackerel laughed, and Sugu picked her up and rubbed her face. Helena pushed Omaha with her shoulder, Omaha, you are a military policeman. Omaha said, Admiral, it is not okay to attack a little girl. Sugu nodded, the big mackerel is a girl's handle. The archerfish said, the admiral is a pervert. Working in Omaha is really easy but not easy at the same time. Are you leaving now? She had explained to her partner in advance that she had asked for leave and that Omaha planned to leave after living in the townhouse for half a month. She still had work in the military police that she had not yet handed over, and her luggage had not been brought back. She had to finish everything. It's gone. Omaha stood on the sea. 1 month, no, it may be 2 months. I can't tell. Anyway, it will be as soon as possible. Life in the garrison is really fun, and Omaha can't wait. On the other side, since there has been no abnormality, Washington relaxed day by day until this day came. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 960. It's another sunny day. Between the two dormitory buildings of the town guard mansion, under the cool shade of the big magnolia tree, there is a white line 5 or 6 meters away from the big tree. Many little Lolita are really standing outside the white line, ready to go. Of course it's not about running. Running on a hot day like this can be fatal. Even the little princess is not interested in it. Amethyst is a big idiot, t-shirt and shorts, the cutest in the world. Zai was standing on the floor bead surrounded by the big magnolia tree in the center, lying on the rough tree trunk, burying his head in his hands, and slowly chanting. Following the voice of Xiaozai, the little Lolita outside the white line began to walk, sometimes fast and sometimes slowly. Seeing Xiaozai turn their heads after reading, they all stood still. Among them, Fanfan was the fastest, and she was far ahead. Lan is the slowest and she put safety first. It was a rare occasion for Rodney to participate. She was usually very ladylike and her speed was quite satisfactory. Xiaozai said, "Thatcher, you have moved." She slept in class and drooled. After class, she was more energetic than anyone else. Thatcher shouted, "I didn't move." Moved. Not moving. When the two of them were in a stalemate, Lafayette stood up. Although they were the three bullies in the townhouse, she would help or not, so she helped. "Thatcher hasn't moved, Xiaozai, please hurry up." "Okay." Xiaozai muttered something and turned around. Amethyst is a big fool. This time, Xiaozai read very slowly at first, then speeded up in an instant. When he turned around, he found that everyone was still, so it failed again. Cushing took a long, unsightly step out, landing on both feet. Imagining that one foot was raised high and the golden rooster was independent, Xiaozai took a second look and made a small calculation in his heart. If he delayed a little longer. "Xiaozai, I know what you are thinking and what your agenda is," Kong said. "It's okay. Even if you stand like this for 10 minutes, I won't move. There is a rule, 10 seconds at most, otherwise Xiaozai would really like to wait 10 minutes to see if the fantasy is that powerful, but she doesn't believe it anyway." Urged on, she turned around again. Xiaozai looked deflated and helpless. She felt better than eating watermelon in the dog days of summer. She danced ballet with her dreams triumphantly. She was victorious with a quarter of the distance to go. This time she was first. Then, before the circle was completed, she discovered Xiaozai stared at himself. Xiaozai waved his hands, "Go back, go back." So fast, Kong Xiang looked at the others, who almost kept the same, but Xiaozai spoke very fast. Kong Xiang returns to the original place obediently. She is very strong, but easily gets complacent, and will fall when she gets complacent. Little Lolita are always happy, they are carefree every day. At the same time, in the cafe of the Tutelary mansion, the weather is getting hotter and hotter, and the air conditioner has officially started working after a winter break. It is said that Sugu once suggested that Yubari should modify the air conditioner and convert it into a central air conditioner. The cooling tower should be placed on the roof. The compressor, condenser, water pump, etc. can be found in a random room on the first floor, and then a fresh air system can be added. Okay, otherwise it would be easy to get bored. Yubari suddenly shouted with a cold face, "Kill me." Now that ice cream, smoothies, and various cold drinks are available, the business that was originally taken away by izakayas has returned. It must be said that hot pot and oden are extremely popular in winter. The izakaya now only has one chumi shopkeeper, who lies on the counter watching the wind chimes swing and listening to the tinkling of the bells to while away the day. In the corner, Daifeng held snacks in his hands and sat on the booth sofa with his legs curled up. He put a novel on his legs together and read while eating. On the table in front of her were plates piled with snacks and a stack of papers. She came here to write a novel, but the deadline was approaching. The editor of the publishing house in Chuangzhou was even better than the previous editor, but there was not a single word on it. Yes, nothing makes people happier than pigeons. People can't relax. It's easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it's hard to go from luxury to frugality. I used to have thousands of words a day, but now I only have half the amount. There is nothing I can do. I just read books, eat snacks, play games, and play cards. Such days are really happy. I am so happy here that I don't miss you. Houston was sitting at the bar drinking Coke and talking to Juno, and the table not far from the bar. Mikuma, it's your turn. Megama took a building block from the bottom of the building block tower and placed it on the top of the building block tower. This is a game called stacking. Since it was still the beginning, Mikuma naturally did not fail. Next we went to Suzuya. This girl was wearing cool clothes and it was hard to control her. She played a huge role in why the aid level was called the aid level. It's my turn, it's my turn. Younger sister Seongye was the most excited and serious. When it was Megama's turn again, she didn't do anything, but lay on the table. It's so boring and boring. Seongye said, how about changing the game, Ludo or Monopoly? I don't even want to play, Suzuya said, I just want to watch some good show. Good show? Yes. In the seat next to the window, South Dakota was sitting on the side. Opposite her was unexpectedly sitting U-96, a little girl. The ordained girl was looking at the cake, fruit ice, and a huge glass of juice placed on the table, her legs swaying, her face full. I couldn't believe it, my eyes were shining, my index finger was moving, and I couldn't wait to eat. Why does U-96 appear here? Clarkston joined the town hall last Christmas. It has been almost half a year now. South Dakota has already started to take action. How can it be delayed until now? Now only U-96 is left and does not know that it is a glorious wedding ship. It is necessary to talk about it. As for the use of food to seduce, it was originally invented by Sugu. She was a fool who was just knowledgeable. Here's the thing. South Dakota rambled. U-96 nodded repeatedly, but his mind was not on that at all. There is nothing better than eating good food, so happy. Humph, if I didn't bother to stay here because I had something to eat, wouldn't it be more interesting to go diving with U-47 and the others? I heard that there are many treasures hidden on the seabed outside the governor's mansion. You can exchange the treasures for things. I want boxes of fruits. Little fat man, are you starting again? With her long white hair tied into a ponytail, a beige bottoming shirt paired with black 9-point pants, and her high heels clicking on the ground, she is the mature and generous royal sister of Washington. She is second only to a few people in the guardhouse, such as speaking of Lexington and its reputation, it is worthy of everyone's reliance. The eldest sister is not just achieved through force. Only when I meet South Dakota, I become childish and put chewing gum under the bench, which is really disgusting. I put the price tag of something on the passing South Dakota, or pour a little alcohol into the drink of South Dakota who rarely drinks. There are so many harmless pranks. She had been worried for many days before, but actually it was both sides. It was a rare day of peace and quiet. Now that her mind has calmed down, she doesn't mind complaining about South Dakota. White-haired violent woman was interrupted. South Dakota looked at Washington with an unhappy face, then turned to U-96, U-96, let me tell you, this woman is the most unreasonable and likes to hit people with an axe. If you meet her in the future, when she comes, you must stay away and ignore her. They are torturing the children again, Washington said, pulling up a wicker chair and sitting next to him. Let me think about what happened. The admiral left the garrison for some reason and left 8 rings behind. Someone secretly took away 3. I mean, it's too shameful to actually become a thief. What thief? I just kept it for you, South Dakota said. And I gave one to Helena. Still keeping it, Washington said. The admiral came back and didn't want to give it back. He took a ring for a long time. Well, I understand this. The finger is too thick to take it off, right? Anyway, in the end he pretended to be pitiful and resigned. He looked aggrieved and put down the ring. U-96 is super sweet and doesn't care what Washington and South Dakota say. Washington continued, there is only one oath ring, worn every day, and no matching ring. Among Sugu's wedding ships, the girl who was married in the game only had a vow ring, but later on, the number of rings was gradually supplemented, including wedding dresses and so on. In this aspect, even a female man like Bismarck is very concerned about it. He mentions it intentionally or unintentionally to remind someone not to forget her. Maybe Baizai is the only one who doesn't care so much, she just thinks about it. It also includes prestige, even though she is a wedding ship and a hostess, her self-positioning is still that of a maid. South Dakota didn't become angry immediately. She also grew up. She raised her left hand and showed off the ring again. The bright diamond reflected the sunlight. Although diamonds are forever and one is passed down forever, which is the biggest scam in history, diamonds still have their own uniqueness. You must be jealous. No. That's right, South Dakota smiled proudly and made a face, you are just jealous, whether I have you or not. Washington took a deep breath and thought to herself that she almost got caught. One should never argue with an idiot, otherwise she will first bring you to the same level and then defeat you with her rich experience. She smiled and said to herself, I'm telling you, little fat guy, be a little more shameless. Don't be so shameless. South Dakota was not that smart, and was immediately led by Washington. She retorted, you are so shameless. Really, all our American students have been disgraced by you. In terms of eloquence, South Dakota was no match for Barrister Washington. Her cheeks were puffing up little by little, and she was getting angry. Nevada was watching the excitement, but when she noticed something strange about South Dakota, she thought of something. She couldn't go on like this, otherwise something would happen sooner or later, so she quickly stepped forward to smooth things over. This is a fact, don't you think? Washington asked Nevada. Nevada couldn't tell lies with her eyes open, so she could only choose silence. Silence was acquiescence. Washington thought for a while and felt that she had gone too far. South Dakota wanted to save face. She shrugged her shoulders and said that she definitely did not apologize. She spread her hands and said, it's up to you, little fat man. You can do whatever you want. Just be happy, okay? I'm leaving. The clay figurine is still angry, not to mention that South Dakota is not a clay figurine. In fact, being angry is not the point. She is an idiot. Idiots are always impulsive and do not consider the consequences. She stood up immediately, her head was so hot that she could not care about anything. Nevada lowered his head, I am an ostrich and I don't know anything. There are many activity rooms in the complex. In the archery room, Akage found Sugu coming in and leaning against the wall. Is there something wrong, Admiral? It's okay, Sugu said, you can continue. Her straight black hair was tied into a ponytail, and she wore a Kyoto uniform with a chest protector. Akage responded and ignored Sugu. She raised the long bow in her hand, took out an arrow from the quiver, put it on the bow, and aimed at the distance. He looked at the arrow target, his eyes became sharp, his lips pursed tightly. He was really a heroic, handsome, dashing, and aloof Valkyrie. Consultant Tsukage, Kage doesn't want to play. I'm not playing. Kagami knelt down on the wooden floor and drank, one dish after another. His face was slightly red, obviously he had drank a lot. What does it mean to play? Ruhi walked up to Sugu with his bow and lightly hit him on the head. Sugu only glanced at Ruhi, and looked away with a sneer. This move had no disadvantages. Ruhi was indeed annoyed. What do you mean by that look in your eyes? Sugu thought to himself, what a look of disgust. Do you still need a breast protector? At that time, Ruhi gave Sugu a fist and said, hey, Admiral, you see my sister is very handsome. Sugu looked at Xianghe. She was dressed similarly to Akagi and had a similar temperament. I said Ruhi. Pain. It turned out that Xianghe walked up behind Ziwehi and punched his sister on the head. Sure enough, it was all my sister's fault that I was embarrassed in the guardhouse. Little did she know that countless people envied her for having a good sister. Next to the archery room is the kendo room, which is the favorite place for Japanese heavy cruisers and light cruisers. Cao Sheng was inside, waving a wooden sword. Her aura was fierce, and she had a completely different temperament from the Cao Sheng in the garrison next door. Although she looks like a wronged little daughter-in-law when she fails, Nagato is really handsome in her normal state. She is wearing protective gear and looks like she wants to compete with Takao. Little Loli was playing, indicating that there were no classes, and Tianlong was also here. She saw Sugu standing by the window and said hello. Sugu waved his hand and played with archery, which he didn't want to do. The reason is very simple. There is no way for a person to swing a sword. Every time he competes with others, he always gets the knife easily pushed away and slashed on the forehead. It is very embarrassing. Occasionally, I would bring little Loli here to demonstrate what the sword drawing technique was, but the adults laughed at me for being a Chuyunibu. Shinano was not practicing carrier aircraft at the dock, nor was she in the archery room. She usually admired Akagi the most and always practiced archery with her. She didn't work as a maid in a cafe, she didn't need help in an izakaya now, and she wasn't with Yuki Kaze. They are the best combination, but they are practicing Aikido. After wandering around, Sugu returned to the coffee shop. Just as he opened the door, he heard South Dakota yelling. I love, am I bothering you? You, aren't you the same? How can you come and go? As South Dakota broke the news loudly, Washington was at a loss for the first time, and everyone else was dumbfounded, including Sugu of course. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 961. Even though the air conditioning is on, a fan is still necessary. At this time, in the coffee shop, except for the sound of the ceiling fan and wall fan rotating, even for U-96, she put down the melon in her hand for the first time without making a sound. It was really quiet, as if the air had solidified. There is no way, the revelations from South Dakota are so explosive that people are immersed in surprise and have not yet reacted. Especially Bumblebee. She was playing Monopoly with others and kept babbling. She was obviously bad at skills and bad luck, so she was always at the bottom with no place from beginning to end. However, she always felt that everyone was messing with her. It was hard to shake her. When he reached a satisfactory point, he took the chess piece and forgot to move. His big butt was raised, his head was tilted, and he was frozen. After a full minute, the atmosphere relaxed slightly. As a younger sister, Xiangye has always been taken care of by her sisters. She is not very good at judging the situation. She was the first to say, "No way, Washington actually." Before Kumino finished speaking, Suzue kicked her lightly under the table. It was obvious what he meant. "Sister Suzutani, why are you kicking me?" Xianjai touched his calf, but she didn't understand. Suzue whispered, "Shut up, do you want to die?" Nevada really wanted to give South Dakota a good beating. Whether it was better or not was another matter. I thought to myself, just say what you say. Don't die as a Taoist friend, but you actually said, not just me, Nevada also saw it. You asked her if she was dragging me into the water, that's not right. But there was no use complaining, she thought again. In fact, even being naked and working as a maid in a coffee shop is not that big of a deal. Besides, as Guam said, the governor's house is basically full of girls and there is only one admiral. It doesn't hurt to look at it, except for him anyway. She doesn't have to get married, sure enough, it's still not possible, being naked and being seen by the admiral or something. So, is it okay to kneel in front of Washington and beg for forgiveness? I remember the admiral said once before that as long as Tig sits down, prostrates himself in petition or apologizes, even if he asks a girl to see her underwear or breasts, the girl will not refuse, and there is nothing unforgivable. By the way, that one seems to have been told by the admiral. It is said that in a certain country, no matter how big the mistake is, just bowing is enough. I have already bowed and apologized. What else do you want from me? This is simple, you can try this. Washington. When his head was hot, he was not afraid of anything. After he calmed down, it still didn't work to take the sword with his bare hands. South Dakotan knew that he was scared and thought that he had to say something, but what would be a better idea? I stammered for a while, not saying a word. Washington is a barrister after all, but actually has nothing to do with it. She has a strong psychological quality. She took a deep breath and quickly smiled. It was not too late to remedy the situation. She pinched South Dakota's face and said, "Say, why don't you say it, now? The little fat guy is so good now and he even knows how to arrange it." How could South Dakota dare to say anything more? She allowed Washington to pinch and rub her. She didn't resist at all. Instead, she smiled fawningly like a puppy. "Yes, I'm sorry." Fall. Asshole. Why are you so timid? Arrange it, you continue to arrange it, the more powerful, exaggerated, and bizarre the better. The best place for me and the admiral to be is a lighthouse, an empty classroom, a love hotel in Chuangziu, or in the woods, it can be anywhere, and then you take the photos down. In this way, everyone should laugh it off and treat it as a scandal. In fact, he was still a little affected. After all, something he absolutely didn't want to be known about was revealed. Washington looked around with a fake smile. Compared to usual, his expression and voice were a little unnatural. Hey, you won't believe it? Bar. Believe it or not, South Dakota is talking nonsense. Guam is a good girl. She often stays around Sugu and is deeply affected, but how dare she be so presumptuous now? Alaska also reacted, "South Dakota, you are really good at making things up. Why didn't you say that Washington came to the admiral with an axe and would chop him down if he didn't give him a ring?" Washington rubbed his forehead and slumped his shoulders. It takes just one mouth to spread rumors, but it takes a long time to refute them. Yes, sister is right," Nevada shouted excitedly, until Washington glanced at her, lowered his head, and tried to shrink down. "Look at the good things you have done." Washington put a hand around South Dakota's neck, and South Dakota did not dare to resist. At the same time, Mikuma whispered, "It may come out of nowhere, but it may not be without reason." Magama said, "South Dakota likes to brag, and it usually makes up for Washington. This time, I think it is credible. At most there are some discrepancies. The level is far lower than that of her sisters. Seongye is still an ignorant girl." She asked, "Is it true, Washington? The garrison is the most gossipy, but there are also targets. The admirals can arrange it however they want. Guys like Missouri and Mutsu who have no integrity may be happy. If it is Washington, anyway," Suzway said, "no matter what, whether it's true or false, it must be false." Suzway really spoke out what everyone was thinking. Everyone around him turned their heads and continued to play their own games. Some were playing chess, some were reading, and some were drinking coffee. In order to show that they did not murmur in private and did not spread rumors. Spread rumors to avoid being targeted by Washington, and even shout louder and louder. "Audrey B., it's your turn, hurry up and shake the dice. York, you stepped on my land. I built 3 houses on the land. Please pay me quickly. This banana boat is delicious. Oh Higgins, do you want it? York City, I went to Chuangzhou yesterday and found a new shopping mall opened there. Let's go there together another day. Washington did not continue to explain, as explaining was tantamount to covering up. She waved Kent over, ordered a glass of beer, picked up a women's magazine from the newspaper and magazine rack, and read through it with her legs crossed. As for Sugu, he listened to the whole process and did not choose to join in the fun. Everyone needed to calm down. It wasn't until the afternoon of that day that Sugu found Washington on the long steps leading to the dock from the town hall. "What are you looking at?" Washington replied, "Sunset." Sunset. Sugu looked at the sea and saw half of the setting sun sinking into the sea level, while the remaining half dyed the clouds and the sea red. Washington asked, "Isn't it beautiful?" Sugu said, "I have always liked coming here. I come here when I have no time and sit on the steps. The wind here is always very strong and it is too cold in winter. This kind of day is just right. I can look at the endless sea and watch the sky constantly circling. Seagulls, the last thing you can't miss is the beautiful sunset. Sugu really likes it here. In contrast, if it is in a lighthouse with a wider view, it would have an ulterior motive." Yeah, Washington responded and raised his head. "Look at the pier, what is that chattering eagle talking about?" Sugu's eyes fell on the pier, and he saw the bald eagle Belmacan standing on top of the container, flapping its wings, and CV-16 in front of it, with its head lowered. "Accidental Dumplings Essex is also there." Washington said, "It should be another mistake made by the CV-16 in controlling the carrier-based aircraft." Sugu nodded, "Dumplings are here too, I guess they were two people practicing, CV-16 was defeated, and then. Although CV-16's training level is pretty good, he really can't do it in front of Dumplings." Washington shook his head. "Although CV-16 usually works hard and is very talented, it's not that easy to catch up. In the final analysis, there is still a lack of actual combat. Although there is a lot of study, training, and exercises, it is definitely still a little behind." Sugu asked again, "By the way, what is the current level of training of CV-16? "Have no idea. The game has a data panel, which is clear at a glance, but any data here needs to be tested. Although mistakes are often made, it is still necessary." Sugu said, "It has been a long time since I tested the training level of CV-16. I will test it another day. It should be over 40, 50 is still far away, I don't know, it will be increasingly difficult to improve in the future. Zeppelin has been awake for such a long time. He used to be a ship girl mercenary and fought a lot, now his training level is just like that. A ship girl with the qualifications of an Elder of War's Pite Academy, her training level is really high, but it is not at the limit. Of course, there is a reason why he has not been on the front line since he became the dean of the college." Washington was non-committal and spoke after a moment, "Is Suk Bader still fishing there?" "Didn't she catch U-96, Sugu said, "I helped her buy a brand new and more complete set of fishing gear." "That is new fishing gear." Although it was just a joke at first, Sugu kept his promise. Sugu continued, "Also, I promised her that if she catches any more fish, whether it is surgeon fish, M2, U1405, small shark K1, or little angel U156, I will reward her with a kayak, speedboat, and so on. She has been thinking about it these past few days. After getting lucky once, I'm still thinking about a second time." Washington said, "It's not that easy. To be honest, I still feel that the appearance of U-96 is a bit ridiculous." "Why did they get caught like this?" Sugu said, "but no matter what, just a young girl is enough. It would be best to do it again." Washington said, "You are a girl controller and a Lolita controller." Sugu said, "I like young girls and Lolita, but I prefer big beauties with hot figures. Anyway, I like all the pretty ones. I'm very simple." "You really don't hide your desires." I'm telling the truth. Sugu smiled and saw several young girls walking up the pier from the steps deep into the sea. That little guy is back. U81 is holding 3 wolves in her arms. Her 3 wolves are really not ordinary beings, and they can also dive with her. Of course it's useless. It can't detect the enemy's situation or attack the enemy. However, it can be considered useful as a companion in the dark underwater. The big mackerel squatted next to Sook Bader, looking at her fish basket to see what she had caught today. M1 shook his long hair. Sir Cook also participated in the diving. At this time, he was standing on the dock with his head tilted and jumping. It seemed that his ears were filled with water. If it were her, she would not only be a little lowly trader, but also surpass many heavy cruisers. She would definitely be able to do it, but it's a pity that she is too far away and can't be seen. How can she repair it? What is the archer fish holding in her hand? She likes ocean research. The room is full of various specimens, and she has recorded them one by one. There is a large aquarium that simulates the bottom of the sea, but it contains tropical fish. Her hand is probably coral, starfish, conch, seashells, etc. U505 was wearing diving goggles and was dragging something with U47. Sugu said, I heard them say they were going to fish for treasures this morning. It looks like they really fished out something for them. Washington sneered, it's probably another mess. Sugu said, 9 times out of 10. There are no treasures that are so easy to salvage. The diving depth of the submarine is limited to around 300 meters. It cannot go to a slightly deeper place. It can only fish out some resources in the offshore sea occasionally, or some coins, rusty swords and the like. It's all just luck, most of them are useless things that can only be thrown into the trash can. Admiral. Sister Washington. Several little girls walked up the steps to the governor's house. When they saw Sugu and Washington, they greeted them one after another. Next, they had to take a shower and change clothes, and they would soon be ready for dinner. After chatting for a while, Sugu hadn't spoken yet. Washington naturally knew the purpose of his coming. There was only one possibility, the admiral must have heard it. Yes, I heard it, Sugu said. Washington said, Admiral, do you believe what South Dakota says? It's true, Sugu said, that day, the day we went to Sichuan show, I remember that as soon as I mentioned that blank contract, your expression changed. You have been worried about something. You should be worried. That's it? Then whatever you worry about will happen, this is Murphy's Law. Tough luck, Washington said. A grown man also has a childish side, and a royal sister also has her innocent moments. Thinking about this, Sugu said, Washington would actually do such a thing. Washington said, Admiral, you can laugh at me if you want. How dare I, Sugu said, Washington has an axe. That's best, you know it's best. Washington burst out laughing, and she called Sugu. When he looked over, he showed off the axe in his hand, the axe blade flashing with cold light. I'm not that little fat guy. Well, it's really a coincidence, Washington said, thinking that he had originally planned to ask the admiral to do something, but he couldn't remember which night it was. At first, he was reading a book, something about law, and it gave him a headache. Took out the blank contract from the drawer and looked at it. By the time he realized it, he had already finished writing it. Suguhen was a little curious, so he asked, which one can you show me? Washington said, no. Isn't it possible? Sugu paused, don't you want to honor it? When Washington looked over, Sugu said, it seems like an IOU. You have to pay it back to me before I can give you money. The same goes for this. Sugu thought to himself, now that he heard it, it was just right. Yes, whether it was Missouri, Richelieu, or Euxian, the reason why they got the ring was because of something. They found that the girl was really cute and beautiful, and they liked her so much that they proposed as soon as possible. Many other people, including Washington, have actually liked it for a long time, but they don't have much thought because they are busy with various things. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De-Rong Yan. Chapter 962. North Carolina has many forms, ranging from young girls to royal sisters. The magical ship girl is a particularly magical existence, usually in the form of a little Lolita. She did it intentionally to take care of Venito's mood because she and Venito were good friends and often spent time together. Poor little Venito, no matter how hard she tried, her height and breasts would never change and she couldn't take care of him. It's not just to pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger. It's like a small house. I don't know why some people always think that little Loli is easy to bully. Simply because being a little Loli is carefree and you don't have to worry about so many things. On the other hand, you can save energy. I can't find it. I heard it's in the Civil Evidence Act. Hey, Washington, what's going on? In Washington's room at night, North Carolina stood in front of the bookshelf, holding a book. At this time, she was a tall lady, with long silver hair shawl length, red at the tips, slightly damp, and looked like she had just taken a shower. Wearing a big t-shirt, the plump bodice held up the clothes, and a bottomless ravine could be seen from the neckline. She was not wearing any trousers, so her thighs were exposed, tight and sexy, and her whole body was filled with deadly wild beauty. No one dared to discuss or ask in front of Washington, but there was a lot of murmuring in private, and they happened to hear incredible things and couldn't wait to come and see and ask. Of course, she is not afraid of Washington, the fallen axe. The reason is not that she also has an axe, although it is smaller, but because she is his sister. Then the little Lolita form was not taken seriously, so I had no choice but to do this. I haven't transformed in a long time. Washington sat at the desk, spinning a pen in his hand. It was a gift from Sugu before. Although it was expensive and the pen body was exquisitely made, the quality of the pen itself was really not that good. Now it can only be dipped. A line of ink was written on it. Sister, you don't think I'm that stupid, do you? I still put it in the original place, waiting for you or someone to turn it over. Other than me, who else dares to look through your things? North Carolina put the civil evidence law back on the bookshelf, and took out another one, specifically choosing that kind, which is thick and boring just by looking at the name. The kind that I would never look through, but unfortunately I still don't have it. Oh, I really can't find it. Where did you put it? Washington threw the pen into the pen holder, leaned back on the chair, held the back of his head with his hands, kicked his legs, leaned back with the chair, and tilted his head to look at North Carolina. I don't know, don't ask me. I usually don't care about gossip. What about the Admiral and so and so? Today I touched Kent's head, tomorrow I sit on the grass chatting with CV-16, and the day after tomorrow I walk on the beach with West Virginia. However, when it comes to my sister's lifelong event, as a sister, I can't. Caring would be too disgraceful to satisfy curiosity, North Carolina said. I'll just take a look, don't be shy. Look for it, and take a look when you find it. It's in this room anyway, Washington suddenly said. Sister, I also want to ask you a question. Go ahead. Washington said calmly. I remember you were not in the coffee shop at the time. Who told you about this? You still have to have some conscience as a person, and selling people casually is not okay. The other party has emphasized countless times that you must not tell Washington who he belongs to. North Carolina waved his hand. Don't ask, asking is avant-garde, avant-garde told me. The girl who takes the blame, Vanguard-chan, no matter what was pushed on her body, of course no one will believe that she really did it. Washington thought for a while. Oklahoma? Hippopotamus probably can't, she is still very sensible. Otherwise, Nevada, Houston, Guam, Bumblebee, York City or Alaska. Wisconsin doesn't seem to be there. She has every beat. North Carolina still doesn't have that much sense, otherwise, show me that thing, and I'll tell you who told me. Since you don't want to say it, let's go to Nevada and cause trouble for her later, Washington said decisively. There was nothing wrong with making trouble for her every time he had her. North Carolina stared at Washington, noticed something, and frowned slightly. That's wrong. What's wrong? Washington felt baffled by his sister's words. North Carolina said, it's obvious that such an important thing happened in a genius, and it might become a joke in the town hall. Wait, sister, you are exaggerating. Don't scare me, Washington said. Little fat South Dakota, Wichita, Raiders, Cologne, I can just count a few of them. Which one of them did it? Isn't it better than me? North Carolina said, at least half of your image is ruined. Destroy it, don't rely on it to make a living. Yes, that's it, North Carolina said. Why do I find that you are in a pretty good mood? Okay, Washington calmed down and said angrily, how do you know that I am in a good mood? Even if you pretend to be angry, you can still see happiness on your face, North Carolina said. Don't give up on yourself and break the rules. Well, would you like sister to help you mention it to the admiral, otherwise that guy will be too coward. Would you like my sister to help you? Washington retorted and nodded. My sister is not married yet, how can it be my sister's turn? Washington took advantage of the victory and pursued it. Don't say no, my sister also likes him. I don't care, North Carolina crossed her arms and shrugged. If someone is willing to give the ring and doesn't mind accepting it, there is not much thought beyond that. As long as the admiral is by his side, it doesn't matter if he is on a wedding ship or not, he is more willing to be his warrior. Me too, Washington said. North Carolina laughs. Here, Sugu is in Missouri's room. In fact, he originally planned to stay in other people's rooms, and he couldn't favor one over the other, but she called him over and finally forced him to stay. The weather was too hot, so the curtains were opened, and the moonlight poured into the room, coating the floor with a silvery glow. When the sound of insects entered the room, Missouri hugged Sugu, leaning her side against his chest, giggling. Unexpectedly, Washington actually has today. The serious barrister and the witch are enemies, and that's how the relationship between Missouri and Washington is. Missouri was a little unhappy. It's really unpleasant. Different treatment. Obviously at that time, rumors were flying all over the sky. Even my son came out and discussed openly everywhere. But now in Washington, no one dares to say anything. At most, they discuss two things secretly and privately. Sentence. Sugu said, you can do it too. Just go to them one by one with an axe and hit anyone who talks too much. Just once, no one will dare to say anything wrong about you again. Missouri smiled, forget it, just say it, it's no big deal. In fact, long before Sugu married her, Missouri had no reputation in the garrison. She was a bit better than Mutsu as a coquettish hoof and a coquettish fox. She also had the title of Madam that Mutsu did not have. She had 4 sisters as reinforcements, Changchun. Suddenly among them, I really don't know how she appeared. Wisconsin is another top player, and Hindenburg is being trained. Missouri suddenly asks Sugu, Washington is definitely MRS-18. Did you give her the ring? You are not the best at following the tide. If you gave me the ring, would I still be here with you? Sugu said, I've long been tired of your body. Tired of it, Missouri hugged Sugu tightly. Let me tell you, I have learned many new tricks, such as the body is the capital of revolution, Sugu said, don't make trouble. You signed a confession, what's Article 27? Forgotten. Let me tell you. Just like that, Sugu was eaten. This is the second day. I don't know if I should change the place or be in the chess and card room of the complex building. Every other girl is like this. There's no way the Admiral won't express anything this time, otherwise it would be too bad, you scumbag. Think about it, Missouri is an example, the ring is definitely stable. Nevada is a typical example of someone who will die if she wants to die. She waves her hands and keeps talking, hoping to gain recognition from others. Nevada, are you done? Guam said, you're done, I'm leaving. Goodbye, no, never see you again, I don't want to have anything to do with you, it's life-threatening. As soon as Guam finished speaking, there was a knock on the door, dong, dong, dong dash. Nevada's heart suddenly lifted, and her expression was dull, again. Every time, she knew there was definitely a traitor here. Guam, is it you? Nevada looked at Guam, it must be you. I used to wonder why I was injured every time and you were never injured. I'm sorry, I'm a policeman. Guam said, and she sneered, do you think it's possible? Aren't you the one who causes trouble every time and you pull us here? The rapid knocking on the door was the footsteps of death, and Nevada was at a loss. Whether it is a blessing or a curse, it is mainly because it has nothing to do with him. Oklahoma ran to open the door. Washington walked into the room with an axe and said, Nevada, South Dakota has not troubled you yet. Are you still coming? How many times have I mentioned it, and you still use me as a bet? Is this really okay with you? Nevada stood up with an expressionless face. When others thought she was going to resist, she first knelt down with her knees together, raised her head and chest, put her hands on her thighs, and then pressed her hands forward to the ground in a splay shape, with her body leaning forward, grabbing the ground with his head. He didn't lift it up for a long time. The coffee table was originally hit by an axe, leaving a big crack. Now it was covered with a layer of tablecloth. Washington did not hit it with the axe this time. She sat down on the sofa, placed the axe on the coffee table, picked up the red wine and poured herself a glass. And ignored Nevada. Of course Nevada did not dare to get up. Let me ask, Guam, who did you vote for? The eldest sister, it must be the eldest sister. Alaska. Do you still need to say it? Do I want to participate in one? It seems very interesting. After listening to everyone's answers, Washington was non-committal and couldn't tell if she was satisfied. She took a deep look at Nevada and said, the bet is someone's life. Nevada dare not say that, you are the party involved and cannot place bets. Washington stood up with a smile and shook his head, forget it, I'll spare you this once. Until Washington left, and even closed the door when leaving, Nevada got up, touched his neck, and asked, let me go. Oklahoma said, you're not satisfied? Satisfied, Nevada said, I just feel a little weird, could it be true, the legendary Dogza? Washington is actually smiling, but she doesn't have a ring on her finger either. Guam stood in the corner, or did the Admiral promise to Washington, but he just hasn't given it yet. After just a few days of stability, South Dakota's forgetfulness became a little big. She has a big heart and a fat body. She is fat and has a big heart. She showed off her ring in front of Washington again. She sat opposite Washington and deliberately put her left hand on the table. However, this time was different. Washington was reading a magazine with his legs crossed. He closed the magazine, stood up, leaned over and touched South Dakota's head, saying, oh, the little fat guy is so awesome. My ring. South Dakota repeated over and over again. Well, it's a very beautiful ring. Keep it well, Washington said, I'm very envious of it. South Dakota said, the Admiral gave it to me. If you work harder, the little fat guy is still very cute. Maybe one day you can get a real ring. South Dakota feels dull and boring. What's wrong? Although Washington usually said this, there was a hint of irritation in his voice. Today, he didn't care at all. It was all ridicule, as if a lion was provoking a puppy and an adult was playing with a child. It's not right. Washington actually suppressed South Dakota. Others also noticed that Washington's condition was different to some extent, but Washington clearly did not have a ring. It had been many days. Usually, the effect would be seen within a few days, otherwise there was a high chance that the ring would be lost. In the office, Lexington worked for Sugu, wiping the tall filing cabinets. If you didn't wipe, someone would wipe it for you. For example, it was Phelps, the daughter who had been trained by himself. She asked curiously, "Admiral, are you going to give Washington a ring?" "I think so too." Sugu showed a wry smile. "It's time to give Washington a ring." Until late May, Washington still didn't get the ring. The reason was that she was still unwilling to hand over the blank contract, which certainly cannot be called a blank contract now, to Sugu. She is also proud and will never give in. Whoever can't help it first will lose. Okay, I admit defeat. After all, it's not because of any contract, nor is it because of an agreement that cannot be refused. Washington, I like you, so marry me. That afternoon, Sugu decided to surrender, handed the ring of oath to Washington's hand, and put it on her left ring finger. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De-Rong Yan. Chapter 963. No one's life can be smooth sailing. There are always twists and turns. South Dakota can't remember how many times he has been embarrassed since he woke up. I want to dress myself up beautifully and please the Admiral. I really like the Admiral. Washington's opinions are unacceptable. She only bullies people who don't understand. The skirt she recommends exposes the shortcomings of people's thick and short legs. No, I don't have thick or short legs. At most, I don't have long legs. Just legs. In that case, do it yourself. Wear a carefully selected beret, a t-shirt, a short skirt, pantyhose and high heels, and you'll be fine now. Who knew that it would be messed up in the end, and the Admiral would actually say things like, "Washington is real, you can't tease people like this," and it's too much. It made people blush and dare not tell the truth. But the Admiral didn't say anything. You are an idiot, South Dakota. Do you believe whatever Washington says? So gentle, I like it more and more. Finally, I asked Richelieu for advice and learned a little. It turns out that you must wear skirts with high waistlines. Many skirts are not acceptable. Skirts should reach the knees. Generous styles of clothes are better. Vertical striped clothes can make you look taller and slimmer. You can also consider height-increasing shoes. Trying to make delicious food for the Admiral and capture a man's heart, the first thing is to capture his stomach. But the final product was so weird, with a suspicious purple color, that even the gentle Admiral couldn't put his hand down after holding the spoon for a long time. Finally, everyone found out and laughed at him, saying that the quality was just a little better than in London. I once thought about helping with the documents, but I couldn't understand them at all, so I could only help with tea and water. I accidentally spilled tea on the document again, and quickly wiped it with my hands, and then damaged the document. Although the Admiral didn't say anything, he felt very uncomfortable. Lexington is a secretary ship, its reputation is really great, no matter what it is good at everything. Washington is also a barrister, even if he doesn't want to admit it. The raider is good at making chocolate, and Santiago can make snacks. It seems that he is the only one who knows nothing. If you want to do something, you can't just eat nothing every day. Well, South Dakota, we have enough people in the warehouse, we don't need help. Don't you usually complain that no one can help you? It's great to have South Dakota here to help. Could you please wash the windows? The work arranged by the Reputation was too simple and she was treated like a little girl. Moreover, why do I have to wipe it again after wiping it once? It is obviously very clean and bright. Think about it, Reputation is just to take care of your own self-esteem. In fact, you don't need yourself at all. How many of our things do you have to break, South Dakota? I tried to work as a maid in a coffee shop, but unexpectedly, I was fired by Atlanta. Is this your level? I studied clarinet playing with Royal Oak, and finally wanted to perform in front of everyone, so I showed up at Soul Performance Live. Whether he was laughed at or disliked, it was all over and it was fine. However, there was no nightmare more terrifying than this one. Sitting in a cafe enjoying snacks, South Dakota saw Washington walking by and found that she was wearing a diamond on her left ring finger. Holding something terrible. South Dakota stammered, Washington, where did you get the ring? After persisting for so long, the admiral finally gave in. He received the ring in the afternoon and walked together on the beach for a while before they separated. Washington is not in the habit of showing off. That kind of behavior would be too childish, but at least show it off in front of someone. Washington raised his hand, spread his fingers, and turned them around. When the sun shone over, the diamond reflected the sunlight in all directions, making it really bright. Don't you have one? Where did your ring come from? South Dakota replied, the admiral gave it to me. Really? Washington laughed mischievously. She was at the scene and watched someone take it, but couldn't take it off, and finally resigned. South Dakota held her head high, of course. Washington didn't care too much. She chuckled and said, then mine is the same as yours. It was given by the admiral. If you have to say something different, he put it on for me with his own hands. What? How could it be possible? How could it be like this? Washington actually got the ring. What should he do in the future? He was completely defeated. South Dakota still held on to a little luck. You must have threatened the admiral with an axe and refused to give him the ring. Just hit people and threaten. Washington took back his hand. Okay, that's what I got for threatening the admiral with an axe. This is too much, South Dakota shouted. Take it off quickly and return it to the admiral. Washington laughed, making South Dakota more and more flustered. Wow, the ring, Washington has become a wedding ship. Let me see, let me see. When did the admiral give it to you? At the same time, others saw the ring on Washington's finger and came over. Washington also let everyone pick up her hand and smiled without saying a word. I just said, next time it will definitely be the eldest sister. Before Nevada could finish speaking, she noticed that Washington was looking at her, and she quickly shut up. Although Washington was in a good mood now, with a smile on his face, he would never do anything to her, so it would be better to restrain himself. Saratoga was not interested in joining in the fun. She sat far away, holding the side of her face with her left hand and muttering, another one. 18th MRS Washington, hurry up and call me sister, Missouri shouted enthusiastically, even though her ranking was not high. Colorado said, Missouri, you haven't called me sister yet. Mutsu calculated silently. Due to the agreement at the public trial, he could only be the younger sister, Missouri, Richelieu, and Yison. Now that Washington also got the ring, there would be only one Xianghe left and it would be his turn. Xianghe would not, you need to worry, she is easy to bully, skip her, look at your sister, congratulate me. Nagato felt baffled for a moment. Kamichia lay on the table and looked at Veneto. She said, sister, I suddenly discovered that we are the only one in Italy who does not have a wedding ship, but we have, well, 7 people. Veneto held the coffee bar without saying a word. Sister, you have to work harder. No, it can't be done, I can't do it. Kamichia looked around. Sister is not as big as Aviel. I think only Sister Ko can do it. Her big breasts. Can you please give me a day off? I don't want to hit anyone. Veneto put down the coffee cup, lifted up his sleeves and touched his arms, thinking this to himself. I can't do it. Ko noticed that everyone was looking at her and waved her hands repeatedly. She recognized Sugu and was willing to be his ship girl, but she didn't like her enough and didn't have the consciousness to become a wedding ship. It's better to leave it to Sugu. Sister, I think of her before. Ah, Ko suddenly exclaimed, touched his thigh and said aggrievedly, Sister, why did you hit me? Andrea narrowed her eyes dangerously, daring to reveal that she had collected rings in the past, even if her sister didn't want them. Until everyone dispersed, Washington looked at South Dakota with a bad expression and turned the ring on his ring finger. Lexington wants to have a child for the Admiral, and I also want to have a child for the Admiral, a child like Xiao Zai and Xiao Luo. Little Washington, Xiao Hua and Little Peanut have white hair and twin tails. They also inherited the Admiral's black hair. Because they like reading, they damaged their eyes at a young age and wear round glasses. The little adults have a good character and learn from it. Looking at me, talking about strict justice, respect, rights, freedom, equality for all. Isn't such a child so cute? It's not cute at all. South Dakota sounds unhappy and Washington laughs happily. West Virginia was sitting next to her. She listened carefully to Washington's words. What Washington said, isn't that the setting of the infant battleship Little Washington that the Admiral mentioned? Maryland said, I remember there are other settings about mature young girls. West Virginia said, he also fantasized about many baby battleships, the Little Colorado, which was flat-chested when he was a child. The Little Mutsu, with a carp streamer, no, a salted fish streamer. The Little Elizabeth, with an army of toys. And the Little Claxton. Claxton is already so small, does it need to be smaller? Shameful childish control. Maryland curled her lips. Well, by the way, doesn't Washington have a daughter? West Virginia saw Sigsby. The little girl was sitting next to Missouri, staring at Missouri as if she was learning her mannerisms. She had also learned from Lexington before, and this little girl was sitting next to Missouri. Fairy, your future is limitless. In fact, Washington was talking tough in front of South Dakota. It was late at night, and he had just handed out the ring and ran to another girl's room. Sugu was in Washington's room. He was taking a shower and washing his hair in the bathroom. He wanted to wash it with everyone, but it was hard to mention it. On the other side, Washington had finished washing and she was sitting on the edge of the bed. I must know something about it. After all, as a ship girl, I am born with common sense. The common sense that an adult woman should have will not cause troubles like boys and girls holding hands, kissing on the lips, or having children when they sleep in the same bed. Also, children are picked up from garbage dumps, similar jokes. And after living in society for so many years, I have always heard and understood a lot. Although I don't like it, I have read a few books, and one of them left a deep impression on me. It was a popular science book with Bismarck as the protagonist, with detailed explanations of the 36 movements. That time the North House was beaten so badly that the whole building could hear it. Her pleas for mercy, and Bismarck's roar. Listening to the slight sound of water coming from the bathroom, Washington's head was in a mess. It would be better if the intercession came to fruition, but it happened to be this. Waiting for fate to come, she fell on the bed, put her hand on her forehead, and looked at the ceiling, but my thoughts were not on it at all. When Sugu walked out of the bathroom with a towel and wiped his hair, he found Washington standing in front of the bookshelf. He had a really curvy body, with thick white long hair hanging behind him, and holding a book in his hand. He walked to Washington behind. What book? Criminal law. Washington listened to the breathing coming from behind, tried hard to concentrate, randomly picked a line in the book and recited silently, those who intentionally destroy public or private property, if the amount is relatively large or there are other serious circumstances, shall be sentenced to fixed-term imprisonment of not more than 3 years, short-term detention, or a fine. Sugu stood behind Washington, staring at her round and smooth shoulders and charming back of her neck, and suddenly smiled. Is Washington nervous? Why am I nervous? Washington asked, her body still sounding calm. No, it's already a wedding ship, so it's okay. Sugu hesitantly stretched out his hands to wrap around Washington. It was obvious that her body became stiff in an instant. He thought that the usually proud girl almost didn't see it. When he is weak, he is even more majestic when he lifts the axe, and there are times like this. Washington didn't want to show his timidity. Is the Admiral so anxious? Yes. Sugu put his chin on Washington's shoulder, spoke into her ear, and breathed, Washington is so beautiful today. Washington asked, aren't you beautiful usually? The main thing is that he is more handsome at ordinary times, Sugu said, picking up the book in Washington's hand and stuffing it on the bookshelf. Haha, who told you that when you usually discuss legal provisions, you just make a mistake and ridicule so much? He takes advantage of the victory and pursues it. Isn't it a little inappropriate to read a book at this time? When things have reached this point, it would be unsightly to continue talking nonsense. Sugu spent so much time and sweat, and exercising every day was not in vain. Even though Washington was tall and muscular, with a very low body fat ratio and definitely no less weight, he could easily carry her princess. What are you doing? This time, Washington's voice revealed a hint of panic. Do you need to say more? Sugu replied with a smile and put her body on the soft bed. Guess what I touched? Sugu saw the axe in Washington's hand. You can chop it, and then you will become a widow. The headlights were turned off, leaving only the bedside lamp. Sugu threw Washington down and looked down at her with her lips pursed tightly. Then he leaned down and kissed her. After a while, he stood up, pulled up a white line, and rolled it up again. Her clothes revealed a flat belly with no muscles. I couldn't relax, my body was still tense. The touch on his skin was so hot that it almost made Washington feel suffocated. She closed her eyes tightly. That was the Admiral she liked. She had liked her a long time ago. After nearly 3 years of bumping into each other again, she finally got the ring. She hesitantly stretched out her hands and put them around Sugu's neck. In the end, the two bodies hugged each other without any barriers. The clouds and rain had just stopped, and his hair was slightly messy. Although his body was tired, his heart was full. Washington looked sideways at Sugu and paused. Admiral, I like you. Sugu hugged Washington tightly. Me too. Really happy.